Hey everybody, I'm TJ Major, spotter of the 8 Xfinity car, spotter of the 6 Cup car. Super excited about the show today. Really important guest.
Brett Griffin, spotter for last year, Daniel Hemric and Justin Haley, who just so happened to be best friends on Saturday.
Good buddies. What's up, Freddie Kraft, spotter for Bubba Wallace and Chandler Smith.
How'd that go?
Really well. I think we averaged about a 47th place finish for the weekend.
Damn.
What's up, Casey?
Hey guys, Casey Boat here, and yes, I would agree with TJ's statement. We have a pretty cool guest on today. Freddie, who is that?
Yeah, I was gonna make fun of him because he technically kind of retired, I think, or I don't know what
What?
you call it. Like,
It's
what was
not what
that?
you
Like
call it.
NASCAR? I don't know what you left, but you don't look as old as in person.
Right.
So and I know you probably still got a bunch of past requests and everything else this week before.
I thought it was so when I put out the note that I was stepping away from the NASCAR side of things, it was kind of funny that I did get a lot of happy retirement messages. But I knew what was getting ready to come out the next day, so I just kind of let it ride.
Yeah. Anyway, so Kip Childress, obviously in the house, good friend of ours for a long time. I've known Kip forever, like I talked about last week, back in the K&N days with Bubba. But welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, right? I wasn't here, I don't think, the first time. I don't think I was on the show yet.
Well, he came in with an entourage of NASCAR people to make sure we didn't put him in a pickle.
Oh,
Guess who's not
yeah.
here this
I
time?
don't know if Amanda's an entourage.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, wow. Definitely,
I mean, she
definitely
makes
showed up with
decisions.
people though.
He had people.
You
Now he's
definitely
by
had
himself.
people. Yeah.
So we're going to get all the goods.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure he's going to divulge all of the NASCAR information anybody would like to know about now. How long are you at NASCAR, Kip?
So there's actually 2 times at NASCAR. The first race I was ever a part of being an official, and when it comes to being on the Cup side, was in '93 or '94, and I can't remember because
That's
that's
a long time
ago. But it was at North Wilkesboro. We at Wilkesboro they would always run either the modified tour or the late model stock cars as the junior series when they would race the Cup cars there. So when we would run late models, they would grab a bunch of us from other local tracks to come help officiate it. So there were a few of us that would stick around and work the Cup race too. So that was my first introduction to being a NASCAR official on pit road and getting my rear end chewed out before we got out of there. and that was when I was 22, 23 years old. But then I worked with the Truck Series in the year of its inception in '95 and stayed with them through '99 when my first daughter was born. Actually, she was born '98. I missed the whole first year of her life, and that's where this sport, it could really take a toll on you from a family standpoint. So, stepped away from being an official and working 40 weekends a year, and did a few other things. Still in the racing world with racing radios, racing electronics. I even had a stint at Trailers of the East Coast, helping folks with trailers to go to the racetrack, and even worked at Orange County Speedway for a little bit as their race director before going back in '08 to get teamed up with the K&N Series. So from '08 until last week was with NASCAR.
How hard is that decision? Obviously, you stepped into another great opportunity, but how hard is that? You spend so much time with NASCAR, whatever it is, 15, 16 years there, in that stretch at least. How hard is that decision to step away?
Yeah, so when I first was made aware of the opportunity, my immediate answer was, I love what I do. I'm not looking to make a change. But after doing a little research on it, because, I've always said that I should always, and I think we all should live by this, any opportunity that comes your way, take a look at it. Because if it could benefit you or your family, you owe it to yourselves and you owe it to your family to at least entertain that. And so when the opportunity, crossed my desk and, had a few conversations with Dale and Kevin and Jeff and Justin, and it was like, all right, man, this checks all the right boxes. I was able to say yes to this for all the right reasons. So for me personally, for my family, there will be opportunities to be home on weekends now a whole lot more than there have been, over the past 15 years. But I look at this as an opportunity to from a professional standpoint, get involved with a series that has done great things up to this point with helping young racers be racers. And so, I'm looking forward to that opportunity. It's the same feeling I had at the K&N level. When we were doing that, right? You look at how many of the drivers now that are in the Cup Series that were racing in the K&N Series at that time. it's pretty dang impressive, right? And to know that we had an opportunity to be a small part of that.
When I heard, we had heard rumors that you may be leaving about a week or two maybe before you announced it, and then we heard the rumors of what you were doing, and I'm like, man, that is just a perfect fit for Kip. Just knowing how we were back in, I was there until 2010 to 12, but just knowing how you handled that series and like you said, what it produced down the road, like this just seems to me, and the excitement around the Cars Tour now is through the roof, it seems like.
It's phenomenal. And Jack McNelly and Keely Dubinsky and the whole crowd at the Cars Tour have done a great job in growing the series to this point. And now we're kind of at not a crossroad, but we're at a time in its career and its tenure to take it to that next level. And so we're looking forward to doing that. I was able to go and be a part of my first race officially this past weekend at Wake County.
Nice boring finish there, huh?
Oh, man, it was, yeah. So the finish was exciting. The race itself was exciting. A little quarter-mile bull ring. My first time ever going there. And I'm going to tell you, if you've never been to Wake County, you need to go.
Where's that at?
So it's just outside of Raleigh.
Okay, yeah.
When you get to Raleigh and you get off of Interstate 40, it's 10 or 15 minutes.
So we're 2.5 hours from there. 2 hours, not bad.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. So I live in Winston, so just under 2 hours for me. And so the funny part is the entrance of the place is hidden. I drove by it. I mean, just flew right by it and saw it in the mirror as I went by. And so went, turned around, and came back. And even as you turn in, you're like, this can't be the right place. It's hidden. There are other little businesses, and it's in an industrial industry. So, you've got to have an open mind when you pull through the gate, because when you get to where the track is, it is a well-maintained, freshly paved. I mean, it's a gorgeous little racetrack, and the racing there for every class that runs there is phenomenal.
I've heard of it before. I had never seen it, and then when I saw it the other night, it just reminded me of Riverhead. It's such a tight bull ring of a racetrack, and the finish was phenomenal. Quapple and I can't remember who was second.
So Quapple and
Gio,
they got hooked up
together
coming to the win, and this is the hardest part. And I guess when you get north of 50, you have a hard time with this. Learning everyone's names has been my hardest. I mean, it took me a long time to learn y'all's names.
I'm sure not.
Not really. But no, so that's the hardest part, is matching names with car numbers. And so, the 96 and the 28, as an official, you learn everything in car numbers, right? So, man, they were getting after it coming to the checker and got tangled up coming off of 2. And, it's you hate to see any cars get tore up. And man, some of these cars on a little quarter-mile track really got tore up. So you hate to see that. But that was a product, that last lap wreck was a product of just two guys going for the checker. And so Logan, that comes out of nowhere, he's running third in the 77. I know the car numbers, but he comes out of nowhere and wins this thing. And so, and to see, and it's his first win.
Oh, that's awesome.
And to see the elation of him and his dad celebrating in victory lane, and I had a chance to go down and talk to him when they were rolling through post-race tech, and he so the trophy they had was a bull. And I guess because we're racing at the bull ring. I thought it had something to do with taking the bull by the horns. Well, I saw the trophy sitting on the deck lid of this car, and the horns were broken off of it. And I said, you literally did take the bull by the horns. And in all of their excitement, they dropped the trophy inside the car. So the little horns popped off. So man, they were so excited.
That's a good story for the trophy, though. I wouldn't change it. I'd keep it.
Oh, no, yeah.
I don't think you trashed that one. So you just said 4 really successful people in motorsports that are clearly owners now of the Cars Tour. Which one was the first one to approach you?
Kevin
Harvick.
Yeah. So Kevin and I, and Kevin and I have a probably of the 4 the longest history. I was part of the truck series when Kevin was driving for Brad Daugherty. I remember sitting in the hauler when he stepped in to talk to Wayne Alton, who was the director at the time, about the opportunity to go and drive the Busch Series car for Richard Childress. And he was asking for advice. Is this something I should consider? I remember those times. And then, even after he started driving for Richard and then began Kevin Harvick Incorporated, I was selling radios at the time. I'd already jumped over to the racing radios part of my racing venture. And so had an opportunity to work with Kevin there as he was building the truck team and providing their communications equipment. And what was so cool was he had people come from everywhere trying to give him equipment.
Yeah.
And it was so flattering, so humbling to me when he said, nope, I'm doing business with this guy right here. Because the one thing that I told Kevin when I went to him was, I was never a sales guy. I loved helping people. And I told him, look, I said, if I'm at the track, you'll never have a problem that's not addressed right away. I said, you're buying our stuff, right? You can get stuff from anybody, but you're buying me. And I'd like to think that that was the reason that he and we were able to do business back in that time.
Yeah.
And so, the relationship that was formed there, hopefully it had a little, weight on what we're doing now.
It was cool to see you get elevated last week on social media, a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, when it got announced. I'm curious, what exactly is your role in this thing? Are you the series director? What all are you doing?
All right, so title-wise, we're going with executive director.
Okay.
And so right now I'm working with Jack McNelly, Jack was the guy who bought the series years ago. And basically, when I say bought the series, as the Hooters Pro Cup Series was going away, he bought the assets of it and was able to take that and build the Cars Tour to what we see right now. And it's undergone a few different changes in types of cars they're racing and some of the rules packages and some of the teams and drivers that have come in and out. But Jack has been the one that has taken this thing and ran with it and has done a phenomenal job with it. So when the foursome purchased it from Jack stayed on to still be the series director. And I don't even know that he calls himself that. He says he's the general manager. I've watched him work now for a couple of weekends, and Jack is a jack of all trades, right? Man,
nice.
He does it all. He helps get the trucks parked. He'll help get cars lined up. He was painting tires. They have to start the race on what they qualify on. So he's painting tires the other day.
Very hands-on.
Oh, 100%. And so, and then, he, while he does all that, Keely Dubinsky, she basically is the behind the scenes, making sure all the admin stuff gets done. But she's another one that is boots on the ground getting things done. Everything from, the registration for the credentials that they do, the folks who sign folks in, the merchandising trailer. She helps get the tower set up for the race, whether it's the scoring equipment or anything that goes on up there, and she's hands-on with working with the track directly too. So right now I'm in a learning process. I'm trying to go in and take a look at how things go on a day-to-day basis, and not just at the track, but Jack, like I said, he does it all. I mean, he's working hand in hand with the track, with all of our vendors who provide the tires and the race fuel and whatnot. And so I'm learning all those things too, and in the process taking a ton of notes because there are things that I think from a so we'll use this as an example. We had weather roll in on us too at Wake County, and there was lightning in the area. So there is not necessarily a lightning protocol like you guys experienced at Atlanta this week, where we don't have someone, or we don't have the technology right now to be able to monitor how close lightning may be. So I've learned over the course of years that's an important thing. When you talk about lives that are at stake, and so that's one thing on my list that I'd really like to investigate to see if we could get to a point where we would have an ironclad policy of what that would be. There are everything from, where maybe the nearest hospital is, where, how do we get folks there? Who is our contact there? Little things like that, over the course of the years, they haven't really had to worry about. So we'll go in there and we'll take a look at how we can make those things better. And then on the competition side, we're working real hard to make sure that we don't have instances where guys are having problems getting through tech, whether it's before the race or after the race. No one likes to see anybody disqualified, but we all know we have a job to do on making sure there's a
fair playing ground.
That's exactly right.
I had a conversation with one of the owners when they made the purchase, and the comment was made to me: we want to put butts in seats, eyes on our cars, and we want to make the purses better than they've ever been. So when I hear that, and when I obviously see they've added someone of your caliber, I think who wins in this whole thing is the drivers, because they're going to be marketed as best as they could possibly be marketed given their age and where they are in their career, right? So that's a little bit of pressure on you. I say.
Well, so I will say this, and I've said this throughout the course of the last couple of weeks, that, I feel like that I've had successful runs at the K&N Series, both East and West, because I got moved out there to work with the West guys too.
Sorry about that.
And then, well, I'm not, because there's some great races
I'm kidding.
out there.
I know there is.
So, and then when I was taken over to the Xfinity Series to be their assistant director and kind of handle, all the movings that go on in the garage area there, and then at the same level at the Cup Series, for the last 5 years, I feel like in every one of those instances I've had a pretty good run. But it has very little to do with me and has everything to do with the people in the garage, the people in those areas. So, while I may have, I've had success with that, it's because everyone has bought into some of the ideas that I've had, right? So I'm hoping that, this will be, I really feel like it will be. I've had a lot of good conversations over the last weekend with a lot of the owners and the drivers and, that run the pro lates and look forward to that continuing. We got a couple weekends off. We have a couple weekends off.
That must be nice.
Yeah.
We have a couple weekends off before we run our throwback race at Hickory at the end of the month.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I'm looking forward to that. There are a lot of plans being worked on right now that, that everyone will see as we get a little closer to that race. So looking forward to that. But I'm really looking forward to getting to know these owners and these drivers and want them to know that, it's.
You already kicked out the owner's car, didn't you, Harvick?
I wasn't on the payroll yet.
I mean, my man approaches you about a job. His car goes out and wins the race, and y'all kick him out.
And I was still on the NASCAR payroll.
Well, then the next week, it's not a car store race, but then Dale Jr.'s car gets thrown out.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
They ain't messing
and
around.
So that being said, some of the things that we are going to be working on, and when you're looking at making changes to items, no change is going to be immediate, right? Because all changes cost money. Immediate changes are really expensive, right? So, but an idea that we all have is that we want to make sure that our rules packages are closer to one another. So we'll work closely with NASCAR, and that's where I think maybe I can help with this too. Les Westerfield heads up the rules department. He and Tony Glover when it comes to weekly and touring. And so I'm looking forward to working with those guys and getting our rules more similarly to theirs, to where, when we have a couple weekends off like we've got coming up, drivers can go and participate at other tracks. The pro late models, those cars are everywhere. And I mean nationwide, everywhere, right? So we want to get to a point too where those rules packages are more aligned. So, when guys have weekends off, guys and gals have weekends off, they can come run with us, and it works both ways.
TJ and I used to talk about this all the time on here, that we remember the days of the local guy could build a car and come out and compete in the Busch Series at the time or the Winston Cup Series at the time. So for you to do that, if you make the rules more, I guess, parallel to other cars, you increase your car count. You increase the level of competition, right?
Well, it does. But I like to think, too, it benefits everybody. It's going to benefit that short track operation, too, that, because we're not out to steal competition. We're not out to steal their drivers, right? But we want to make it available for them.
But the local hero getting to come out and race with you guys, that's cool.
Oh, and it'll make for a great race because you know how hard it is to go to somebody's playground and beat them at their game.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Racing season has been underway. New customers download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code CLEAR.
Bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly.
That's code CLEAR, only on DraftKings Sportsbook.
All right, Casey, you ready to roll?
Well, yeah.
We
On
got a
that
bunch to
note,
do.
you had your first off weekend in forever. What was it like being home from Atlanta?
It was awfully hard not to send out pictures of the TV and my feet propped up on the on the ottoman on the couch. But I would tell you it was nice. Now, granted, I was gone all day Saturday, and so I saw that. So so I was gone all day Saturday to Wake County for our race, but got home right around midnight, and up next morning, and so one thing that I've missed over the last handful of years is being able to get up Sunday morning and go to church. We have a great church that I've been a part of for a number of years, and from a family standpoint, they would go without me. now to be able to go and do that again on Sunday morning is going to be awesome. And then to be able to come home and watch the race on Sunday and maybe send a text or two out. And so, but the other thing, one of the very first texts I sent out on Sunday was to Jesse Doliveux. Jesse was the assistant director in the truck series. And so when he found out that I was, stepping aside, put his name in the hat for the Cup gig, and he and Brad Moran, who is the series director, they have a working relationship from back when Brad was in the truck series. So Jesse was offered that position and able to take it, and so one of the first texts I sent out was to him, telling him good luck.
With a picture with your feet up? Or?
I didn't do that because I know if I would have attached a picture to it, he'd have never gotten it, because I know how phones work at the racetrack.
Just
Sundays.
make sure you don't spoil all the spotters on that Cars tour like you did in the Cup Series with these guys.
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Oh, before Brett gets himself in trouble, TJ.
What?
Welcome to the show.
You had a pretty eventful day yesterday. Take us through what that was like.
I don't know. We weren't very good in the beginning. We struggled in the beginning when it was warmer out. The sun went down. We made a pretty lengthy pit stop, made some adjustments on the car, and the car was really good. So
you have some serious emotion with your responses.
Well, I mean, what do you want me to be excited we lost? I don't know. It was a good race. It was fun driving from the back to the front, and then having to do it again. We didn't get a chance to get all the way back to the front there at the end, but that's the way it fell, and it was good to get up there and be competitive and lead laps and be racing with them guys. So that place is, I don't know what it looks like on TV, but it's pretty challenging. It's not.
It looked the best it's ever looked.
It was the most eventful, exciting race. And
they're on the edge to me.
They kept saying 25 laps to go in stage 2, and I was like, wait, we only have we have one more stage left. This is unreal. So on that note, knowing rain was on the way, and then ultimately they called it. Do you guys? There's a lot of comments on Twitter for me to ask y'all, if you felt that they made the right decision, and I know obviously you wish.
Yeah,
they kept
we had
going,
to. We had 12 to 15 laps of fuel left. So, and if that rain, honestly, I think we get past that point if there's not a yellow. So you really got to bank on some serious luck at that point. And our car was good enough. I mean, we got almost all the way. We got back to 6th, and we were kind of stuck because they were too wide in front of us. And I would have loved 5-6 more laps or so, but that's just not the way it fell. But I feel like we made the right pit call for our race. We got a stage win. We could have pitted before the end of that and came down and tried to cycle, and hopefully it went long enough for us to cycle back up there. But I think getting back to 6th place makes it, at that stage win and finishing 6th, so that's a good point day for us. And right now without a win, and it's gonna, you're coming down, you're really racing for points. So at this stage, we got to maximize everything we can get. So I think Matt and them made the right call to do, and Brad drove his tail off there at the end, and we almost got back up there.
There was some guys that pretty much put it all on the line, banking on rain. I think somebody said McDowell ran 91 laps.
Yeah.
He had 4 on the, I think on the broadcast
Like,
he said he has 4 laps left on fuel.
And
before.
our fuel window was only 73,
Even Byron,
72 laps. Yeah.
He was on 60 laps of fuel. He was already out there for 60 laps. They were really banking hard.
They had to.
They had to
make that call, though, because of what we saw in Daytona last year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it wasn't ideal, and it was we talked about the perfect storm last week for SVG coming in and kicking our asses. This was kind of the unfortunate perfect storm for NASCAR, where this caution falls. And I think if we're green, if we're still running green, that caution doesn't come out, we still run another 20 laps or so, and it might have hurt you guys. It might have hurt.
Yeah.
Them guys would have ran out, but
Would've
it's perfect
benefited us.
storm. Yeah, perfect storm of the yellow comes out. We haven't opened pit road yet. Now the drops start to fall, so they're never going to open pit road with it raining, because, you don't want to give somebody, you don't want to put anybody in that position to make the decision of, do I want to risk it? Do I not want to risk it? You could. It'd be probably a lot more interesting, but, you're not going to make that call. So then we ride around there under yellow with pit road closed, And I just think that the rain was so close that you're not going to, with any time it picked up a little bit, we came down pit road. Once you came down pit road, you knew it was over. They're not going to take the drivers out and then stick them back in with a big storm coming. So I think they made the right call. I think obviously it didn't work out timing-wise. It probably didn't look great because it's not raining very hard. It was just a couple drops. The track wasn't wet. But we knew it was coming, and you're not going to restart the race. You're not going to open pit road for one with it raining, and you're not going to restart the race like that, knowing that the big storm's coming and risk, what we did at Daytona last year where we all drive into turn one.
That's what I'm saying. We could have got back
field.
to the lead and say we go back green and it's sprinkling. Well, guess who the first car to turn 1 or 2 is going to be where if it does start raining? It's going to be us.
Yeah.
So I think they made the right call as well. Obviously I wanted to race more, but I feel like it was the right call.
Kip, from your standpoint, obviously being on the NASCAR side for years, take us through what that process is like as they make that decision and try not to frustrate every single person.
Yeah, so, I'm sure, was it Tim or Jason calling it this week?
Jason.
Jason, yeah.
Tim's probably still recovering from Chicago.
He was in Mid-Ohio, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
well,
think so.
Yeah, he probably
okay,
was.
so, they're in communication with everybody around the racetrack. The spotter stand, the caution car, the turn spotters that are out there, and they're asking what do they see. Of course, they're looking at a radar, and they know what's coming. But I think we've all been around weather enough to know that it is, while you see it coming, it can be unpredictable. It could split in a hurry, and so that's why they were hoping that maybe it would. So they're riding around. They're not opening pit road. I was listening to a little bit of satellite radio this morning, and there are fans that are upset about that. The racers aren't, right? The guys that are doing the jobs, they're not upset about that. So it doesn't put anybody in a position where they're going to, maybe roll the dice. But nobody would have come in. No. I mean, so watching that radar and knowing what they had coming. The one thing that I said is that, look, they're going to stop this, or they're going to park them on pit road. They're doing that once the drops started really kind of picking up. But I said, once they lose this track, it's done, because
it's too late.
Yeah, that place is 2.5 hours to dry easily. With every amount of equipment that you could possibly put on it, it's going to be 2.5 hours to dry.
Everybody that's at home that was upset because they stopped the race and had to call the race, I'm telling you, they were warranted, because they were having that much fun watching that race.
Well, for sure.
They didn't want the race to end.
No,
that's why I think they were, upset. It wasn't that NASCAR did the wrong thing, because I think they did the right thing too. But fans were literally enjoying that race.
I was, so I don't get a chance. Never really had a chance to watch a race live. I would always go back and watch it, but to sit there watching that live, I was up on the edge of my seat.
And to you may hate the weather, you may hate the way that race ended. The reason why the race was as great as it was because of the weather, because we didn't know when it was going to end. I saw one bolt of lightning off in the distance in turn 2, and it was like the aggression level turned up 10-fold.
How many laps was that left to go?
That was probably, I would say, 15 to 20 laps before halfway.
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe, maybe 115, 110, somewhere in that range. But you could see it. I even said on the radio, I'm like, okay, now we're getting ready to go haywire, because people are making moves they shouldn't be making, and you see the aggression level turn up, and that's when that's when all the comments I seen, we had that red flag, and I just seen that's when the comments ramped up about how phenomenal. And the race was great throughout, but when that weather got close and you could start to see it off in the distance, the racing itself, TJ could probably attest to it. It ramped up a lot in the aggression level, similar to when we won Talladega. All of a sudden they tell us, the rain's coming, you guys better get after it, and we start throwing blocks in stage 2 that we would never throw in the future. So I think the weather itself, lended a hand to, the aggression level and how good the race really was.
Well, I'll tell you what that does. That puts a liability in the driver's pocket going forward, because not a lot of times we haven't run that package there many times, but 2x2 is what you commonly say on the radio when you're spotting, because there's not a lot of movement. That was a freaking awesome race yesterday. So if we go back down there and it's boring, it's the driver's fault.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to ask you related to weather, and I don't know how much you know about this or how much you were involved in something like this. Obviously, we've seen a lot of complaints about not moving the start time. Now, whether it's an hour ahead the day before or 15 minutes ahead that day, what goes into that decision making? And obviously, the weather was 50-50, so it's hard to make that call 24 hours out. But maybe Sunday we see it a little bit better. What goes into that decision making?
Yeah, so I was never really a part of any of those. I do know that to make that call, you have to do it 24 hours or more in advance to do it, right? So I I know they were all talking about it. They had to be. But I think at the time that they were looking at that, you guys weren't really expecting to see any rain too much later in the evening. So what came at you, it sped up. So, you know, I can assure you that they were taking a look at that, and if they thought that they needed to move it up, they would have done it without a doubt.
Yeah, and I like the intensity definitely picked up because of the weather. We had talked about it earlier too, and it was definitely more intense because every driver is being told the same thing. Every crew chief's looking at the radar down there. I was watching the radar app, and I was worried about lightning for a little while, and then the rain got close, and it wasn't. I don't know, like I saw a lot of lightning, but I didn't and I have multiple apps. None of them. I was going to ask you this: what registers as a lightning strike? Because there was a lot of lightning that we saw, but on my, when I'm looking at stuff, and none of them showed as being strikes near the track. So there's a difference in the lightning.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what triggered. We would sit there and we would receive messages, alerts, whether it be through email or text messages, and it would give us down to the 10th of a mile of where the strike was. I had one app that was on my phone that was always pretty dang close to the information that we would get. But we were lined up with, the Weather Channel, and there was a system that was put into place that was automated to where when the strikes happened, boom, we got
an
a
alert.
message.
Yeah.
Oh, because I'm going to tell you, I had to call them and remind them to remove my number because I was getting them all day long on Friday and Saturday. So, and from Mid-Ohio and from Atlanta. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because you could see some lightning in the sky, but they weren't like bolts hitting the ground, But I don't know. It definitely picked up. It didn't I know when we made that long pit stop and we got the car better, Brad took off and he was driving to the front. So
the one thing I know, so you were talking about, spotters would say 2x2, and that's the one thing that we heard about Atlanta after they did the reconfiguration was, that third lane would be tough. I don't know that the third lane was able to make any progress. It probably didn't look like it did.
There were some guys trying.
But it really
Martin Truex was ripping up there.
He was fast, and so to see the cars coming off of the corner, 3 wide, it was pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, there was a couple times where Martin drove around us on the outside, and we tried to follow him and just couldn't. And I don't know how much handling battle you fought, but that reminded me of an old Daytona race before they paved it, where handling almost mattered just as much as. And we saw that on Saturday also. And ironically, he won the race, but the 20 had one of the worst handling cars out there in the front of the pack, and all the JGR cars really. You could see them go in the corner and wash up the racetrack, and we were having similar issues early in the race last night. So. I just, that the handling coming into a play. And one of the things, I think you actually tweeted this, which I don't, God forbid we talk about your Twitter.
Didn't he?
But
everybody loves my Twitter. There's 77,000 people that like
I don't know if you did it or somebody did from Couch Racer. I can't remember. But we talked about the distance of the race, and somebody said, would you be okay with a 300-mile race? And Jordan Bianchi and Gluck, I was listening to their podcast on the ride home last night. They brought up a great point. That race was phenomenal, I thought, last night. And it was 277 miles. What's wrong with just running another 25 miles versus going another hour? The race was, I think, 2.5 hours long, maybe-ish. Why do we need to add another hour to that? If you want these guys to race with urgency, that's what you do, is shorten the damn race. Because you will see less of the riding around 2x2. If we're going another, what do we have left? 80 laps last night? Something like that. I think that maybe that needs to be visited of, this was a great race and it was just shy of 300 miles. Why would we not, think about making these races 300 miles?
Plate races, I don't think. The only plate race I think that needs to be 500 miles is probably the Daytona 500.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, the rest of them, you want to create urgency. You're going to get rid of that ride around stage we always seem to have. So I think, I don't think a 300-mile plate race is a bad deal.
Probably my favorite thing about Atlanta compared to Daytona Talladega is the fact that the manufacturer alliances aren't as obvious. you guys are able to stay on top of each other, make moves, whether you have teammates or don't have teammates. So when you look at everybody pits at the same time at Daytona Talladega, you don't have that at Atlanta. Obviously, we saw Penske cars working very well together, and a couple different times various teams working well together.
Qualifying?
But we didn't have a whole OEM, But we didn't have a whole OEM strategy screwing the race up.
Why is that?
Well, it's harder. It's like we talked about. It's hard. For one, you don't want to pit together because pit road entry is a little bit sketchy. You don't want to end up at Daytona Talladega. We all have it down. We all have marks. You got a big wide entry. You can kind of split up and get away from each other. Here, it's you're coming off at 2. You're potentially crossing lanes. You're potentially, crisscrossing down the back straightaway with guys that are staying out or coming off pit road. So you're almost wanting to pit by yourself away from everybody at Atlanta. And then it's just harder to get together. And it's harder to defend. Like a lot of times you'll see us all line up. If we line up 4 Fords or 4 Chevys or 4 Toyotas in a row, the last guy in that line of the 4 will be the defender. He'll block the runs and the 3 will move down in front of him. It's a lot harder to do that. With the runs last night were massive, and they would come from nowhere seemingly. There was one time TJ was like 2 back of us in the middle lane, and next thing you know, I'm like 2 back before I can even say count. You'd normally be like 2 back, 1 half with you. It's like 2 back inside. Just instant runs. So it's just harder to get together, stay together. We tried to work a little bit. Like I said, one time we tried to follow Martin to the top. We couldn't do it. We almost hit the fence. It was just, it was
the exit of 2
race.
was getting sketchy.
Yeah.
The exit of 2 was getting really sketchy.
The coolest part about that racetrack and this package is how short that back straightaway is. You don't have a lot of time to make a move. So when you make the move off of 2, that back straightaway is freaking short. Yeah. You got to be in a hurry to get clear before you get to 3, or you may be screwed. So I just think the characteristics of the track, and here's the weird part for me, Kip, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this out loud. I think our plate package, which we're drafting package is what we're calling it now, I think it has sucked. And when we got to Atlanta, it was freaking a 10 out of 10. And I don't know what the difference was.
Because handling.
Yeah, Daytona and Talladega are so much bigger. They don't have to lift for the corners at those tracks like they do at this place still. I mean, when you get that run that Freddie's talking about, when you get to turn 3 and you're going that fast, you're like, ooh. I mean, you don't know if they're going to make the corner.
I think 02, 03, we had 2x4s on the roofs of the Cup cars. And I think Ward Burton might have won the Daytona 500 that year. That's what it looked like racing.
I won that way.
Literally, you guys were swarming on each other. It was phenomenal. But anyway.
And like I said, you saw guys. There was some guys. The 43 sticks out in my mind. The 45 was up top trying to make that work. The 43 was probably the most aggressive guy there last night. Martin was hauling ass, but it was
by aggressive. You mean hitting things? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes stuff got in his way, and he's trying to go forward.
It was if you got your car driving good. I'm not gonna lie. There's a couple times we got shoved down the backstretch, and we had to run into the bottom of 3, and Brad over to the bottom, and I was like,
uh-oh.
Yeah, we're not gonna make this corner. And then he went around 2 cars, and I'm like, oh. Our car's really good, and it's they go into 3, and I'm sure I don't know if TV saw, but from our angle, you can when you can see them runs forming, and those guys go into that corner, and one restart, Brad pulled an old Jamie McMurray move down the backstretch. You know how McMurray would always go through the middle on the corner entry, and he shot through the middle right as they split in the other corner. Brad drove through them. I'm like, oh god, I almost quit looking for a second, but it was they fight the cars. You can see them. That's why I asked you if you watch qualifying. Qualifying was exciting. I watched the 48 go into 1, and he was aimed towards the infield, and then he was aimed towards the outside wall, and he still saved it. And you had Ross lifting because he was out of control. 42 was lifting. There was guys that were – the 10 got the pole, and he was chasing it all the way up off turn 4 and still got it. So, definitely exciting.
You guys didn't have a time. I didn't get to see qualifying. What happened there?
We had an issue. We had a little – some kind of issue. We didn't make a lap. We aborted, and he about wrecked in 3. He did a phenomenal job for what the issue was. He did a phenomenal job to not crash.
How do you know what it drove like? It might have been.
I saw it, and I was watching. I was watching on TV, and it was everybody was free. We saw guys dive off in the corner and get free, and originally I'm like, because it's not a good feeling. Bubba's on the track. They had gone to commercial, so I know we were next. Bubba's on the track, and when they come back, we haven't taken the green yet. Bubba's probably just left pit road, so they're still on pit road camera, and they're on Logano and Cindric having a conversation. And then at the same time, they both perk up, look over, and turn one, and they're pointing 3 and 4, and I'm going, oh, just wrecked. Like
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the camera to cut off and the 23 be destroyed. So they go over there and Bubba, you could tell he's saving it and he's coming downhill. So I'm like, oh, he must have drove off from the 3 and got loose. And like when he went in there, he like normally you see him step out on the right rear and they chase it up. Well, Bubba's car actually like tracked to the left and then it was just all over the place. And he's like, something's broke. And there was an issue. Self-inflicted issue, yeah. But it is what it is. But yeah, it was. I thought this race itself was perfect follow-up for what we had last week. The big crowd we came off of last week, if any of them people track back over to this week, and they got a hell of a show.
Well, we have plenty more to cover, so let's head into Spot On, Spot Off.
Hey guys, you like easy money? Then you'll love our new partner Moneyline, the all-in-one mobile finance app designed to help you take control of your money. With Moneyline, you can borrow, save, invest, and earn money all in one place.
That's right. Spot On, Spot Off is now brought to you by Moneyline, the official digital finance partner of 23XI Racing.
Download the Moneyline app, set up direct deposit, and get up to $55.
Use promo code $DirtyMo to earn up to $55.
First topic, Austin Hill says, just have no friends out there. Everyone's my enemy after a colleague-controlled Xfinity race. Freddie, Spot On, Spot Off.
I mean, what do you want us to do? Like, move over, let him go, get in the middle of our group? Like, there's a whole point of controlling the race. And listen, we have an alliance with RCR, and I don't know if that means we're supposed to be nicer to him than we are to other people. But I specifically, if you were listening to my radio, told Chandler we cannot let the 21 car get to the lead. There was multiple times at the end of that race, obviously, middle of the race, we're all working together to try to get up there. Well, we ended up there where we needed to be. Colleague does a great job of getting themselves in position. Maybe our execution wasn't great at the end. But, we have 3 cars in a line. We're all kind of lined up there, and it's the 10, which was Justin, Chandler, and then Daniel. And it was flipping behind us, whether it was 20 or the 21 in fourth. And a couple times the 21, who I thought was one of, if not the best car on the racetrack at the time, he would get runs on Daniel and get underneath him. And I told Chandler, I don't care if we have to hang Daniel out to dry. We have to block the 21. If we let the 21 get out in front, we may not see him again. And we've seen that. And we're not enemies with Austin Hill. The guy has won every plate race for 2 years, seemingly. So that's the guy you're not gonna help him. Like you have to control him. You have to keep him buried in traffic. People probably did it to Dale forever because they know how good these people are at plate racing. So if you give them the lead or if you help them get up there, it's one thing if it's the 3 Toyotas lined up in front of us and Austin are back there. We're gonna work together to get them. But when I have a teammate in front of me and a teammate behind me, sorry, buddy, we're not going to help you get up in there and ruin our party for the end of the race because I felt like we were in the position we needed to be, and we just needed to control that until the end. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, we're not going to help you. I don't know why you would expect help at that point.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Elliott at the plate races. He finds his way back to the front like nothing, and then he gets there, and once he gets the lead, damn well if he gets the lead, the race just got harder for you to win if he gets to the front. But speaking, I would ask Austin, like, how did you get to the lead? Because you helped all your friends get there. I mean, because you know what moves to make, and you're there, and you know that if you get your best chance of winning that race is to control it, and if you get there, you're gonna have your odds go way up. So I think they look at Austin the same way.
To that point, there was a funny point in the race where we have worked really well with RCR. Obviously, Chandler's done a phenomenal job at plate races. We have absolutely nothing to show for it. But there was a point earlier in the race where I forget who was leading, maybe Sieg, and it was we can kind of with the choose rule now you got to play that in a lot. And we had seen it was like Sieg, Creed, Custer, Chandler, or maybe Chandler then Custer and then Austin. So I went down to the RCR spotters, and I said, we need to – I think that the two – because Sieg is essentially a Stewart-Haas car. He's a Ford affiliate, Alliance, whatever that is. I said, they'll line up at the top. Sieg's going to take the top. I think the 00 will go with him. We need to just triple stack the bottom and try to make that work. And everybody's on board. Okay, great. We line up. Creed, that split's kind of how Creed goes bottom. We go bottom with him. The two Stewart-Haas cars go top, and Austin went top. And I'm like – okay, I guess we're not doing that. So you want help from everybody, but at the same time, when we asked for help, you went the other way. So I don't know what you expect out of us.
Yeah.
Brett.
Look, man, Austin Hill has been the guy to beat. Freddie's right. He only led one lap, Kip, this past weekend at Atlanta, and I thought on television that Chandler Smith and the 21 Austin Hill had the two fastest cars. And I say that not only because were they fast, they could turn down under guys on the exit of the corner, clear them getting into the next corner, kind of side job them and blend up there in line. It looked like the way Daytona used to race years ago when it was nice and worn out. Austin's frustrated. I mean, he lost his teammate. Once he lost his teammate, I think he's a sitting duck. Colleague Racing is not in business to help Richard Childress Racing win races at any point. In any team meeting, are they going to stand up and say, we got to make sure we help Austin Hill all day today? If I'm driving and if I'm running a team, I want to get rid of the fastest guy out there. Now, the beauty of the alliance is you do work together to make your cars faster. Colleague Racing went through a spell there where they were the fastest plate cars out there, and I think that helped Richard Childress Racing get faster, and I think it helped Austin Hill have fast cars. I think when you look at that race, 4 or 5 of the fastest cars out there were RCR affiliate cars, including the RCR cars themselves. So I think Austin is rightfully upset. He kept saying in his interview, I just wanted to get the lead. Well, so did 30 other guys out there, bud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't have a chance to see, Saturday, but I'll go back to the point that you made a little bit earlier, the fact that, even though that you want an opportunity to work together because you're running at a track that's very similar to Daytona and Talladega, you don't have a whole lot of opportunity for that to happen because of how fast things go, right? It's a mile shorter racetrack. Things happen in a hurry. And if you end up cutting one guy a break or giving them a chance to help you, the chance of getting that back may not come around. So, yeah, I certainly understand his frustration, but at the same time, too, things happen really, really fast on that racetrack.
Continuing on the topic of Xfinity and Colleague Racing, Justin Haley pulls out of line coming to the white flag in the Xfinity Series race, bailing on teammate Daniel Hemric. Spot on, spot off, Brett.
Oh, boy. I think
Where do you work?
I think Daniel Hemric did one thing very wrong and very detrimental to his finish. You want to know what that is, Freddie? I think he trusted Justin Haley. I watched that restart, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, Colleague Racing is in a really good spot. And, look, you go back. If the caution doesn't come out, it sure looks like one of the Colleague cars is going to win. But when the caution comes out, it's like, man, this is going to get tricky. And you've got the two Colleague cars on the outside with Parker Klingerman behind them. And then on the bottom, you've got John Hunter on the front row, which was smart of him to take the front row, and then obviously a Colleague car behind them. Well, when Chandler and Parker both run out of gas, the top line is dead in the water. Justin Haley has no pusher. Daniel Hemric's job on that restart was to get hooked up with a 20 and get him going and hopefully have an opportunity to get up and get with his teammates. Well, it happened so fast on that restart, I think by the time Justin realized, oh, God, I don't have a pusher, Daniel was already almost clear of him getting into one. So the way it kind of played out in my mind watching this thing, and I haven't talked to Justin Haley, nor have I talked to Daniel Hemric, like I just saw it as when Justin Haley was catching him out of 4, had he picked up Daniel Hemric, I think he pushes Daniel Hemric to the lead getting into turn 1, and I think he clears John Hunter with no problem. And I think Justin said in his interview that he was running out of gas, and he pulled down. Well, I've never seen anybody run out of gas go so fast by somebody in my life.
When we ran out, we didn't pass anybody.
I think this is a case of Daniel Hemric feels the heat of I've got to win a race right now. And I think this is Justin Haley feeling the same heat of I've got to win a race right now. I'm coming off a stellar effort in Chicago. I'm a great drafter. If I can clear Daniel Hemric right here, I think I have a chance to win. And I just think for Colleague Racing, it just kind of sucks because you should have won the race. And the way it played out, you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we were in position to win the race. I thought, to your point earlier, I thought us and the 21 had the best cars. We got to second with, I don't even know, 30, 40 to go.
One time, Freddie, you made a couple of moves that I didn't agree with. You left the top open. You didn't get up in a hole. And you fell to 8th. And I was like, well, he's screwed. I turned around, and you drove right back to 2nd. That's how fast you were.
Yeah, it was one of them things where, there was one tight hole that we were only going to go back 2 more spots, so we didn't get up. And then Chandler, I thought, and at the same time, Chandler, we've talked about this with Chandler before, me and you both probably. He for one, trusts people too much at plate races. Like, same thing with Austin Hill. People see how fast your car are sometimes, and if you make a move, they might not go with you because they would like to see you dump back to 8th. As much as it might help drag them up to 2nd, they still don't want to see you out front. So they're going to let you go to the bottom and close that hole up and hopefully shuffle you out. Luckily for us, our car was unbelievably fast.
I don't trust Chandler.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just so you know.
But we got to second. And I told Chandler, we're just gonna ride here, bud. Like we're where we need to be. We have a teammate behind us. Hopefully he can throw the block. We talked about he can be the blocker. We'll cover him when he does block. If not, if somebody makes a move on him, that gives us a little bit more time to throw a block. So I'm like, we're where we need to be for the end of this race. Like you don't need to move for the next 30 laps, and that's what we did. And there's a couple times I saw him maybe off at like 2 to go, coming to 2 to go. Actually, right before the yellow, he started to back up. And obviously if you watch play racing, if the guy's backing up, he's trying to create a gap to get a run on the guy. And I was like, wait, not yet. Like we can't, because I don't want to get side by side with 2 to go and open the door for somebody else to come up in there. I don't mind if we do it taking the white or down the back, whatever. But you do that with 2 to go, and now you've invited somebody else to the party a lot of times. But I thought we were in position. Obviously, the yellow comes out. I'm like, damn it. We're talking about. And listen, Kaulig got lucky because one thing happened that I wasn't expecting, and we had talked about it, with the Trues rule. We were going to triple stack the top because I had assumed that the 20 and the 48 were going to go to the bottom. And because I just, Parker's super aggressive. He's really good at pushing. I was like, if he can push that 20, and the reason why we were going to triple stack the top with the 20 leading was we've done it 3 times before, and we were able to. He was not very good. His car wasn't great, so we could easily drive around him every restart we had and clear him and get all 3 of our cars clear. So that was our plan. Luckily for Kaulig, it didn't work out that way. Where Parker actually chose behind us, so that gave the 11 the opportunity to take the bottom. If not, we would have killed all our cars. All the cars would have been in maybe outside the top 5. So, it got lucky there. But, to your point, it was funny because Justin had Frank Denny spotting, obviously. And Justin gets on the radio and tells Frank when we're running second, make sure Chandler knows, Kaulig has to win. And obviously he wants Chandler to just push him to the win. Obviously,
he means Justin Haley has to win.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. So, and then what happens off of 4 happens where he pulls down and kind of ruins any chance they had at winning. Was ironic, but
I've been in that situation before.
Yeah,
earlier this year.
We had it in perfect. And when Chandler runs out of gas, it's like all car. And the way it worked out was perfect because Justin could have very easily been hung out to dry, and it was just luck, sheer luck of the way the lines broke up that he was able to even tuck in behind Daniel and start to get that run. But yeah, unfortunately, I think we were in position to get one and didn't get it done.
Bretto, in the Cup race, we got to the lead there. It was similar, but you could kind of control both lanes a little bit because Chris was racing with Blaney, and the guys behind them were also 2x2, and the intensity was so high that they're just pulling each other back, so that neither one of them get pushes of each other. And the straightaway would go low to pull Chris, and would go to the high side and to block Blaney on the entry, then back to the bottom and pull Chris again, and it had that old school feel that them guys, and it was actually kind of nice. But as soon as the guy got clear behind one of them, it's like you better pull him tight because here comes the big run. But yeah,
Josh had a good first stage.
Yeah, our car was, I feel like, as good as the 16 at the beginning of that race, and we had a couple issues. Got super loose. Josh got into the wall a little bit. Kind of surprised him because we had been able to run. He was able to drive to the bottom and hold it wide open to 3, which a lot of cars couldn't do. So we were really good, and then he adjusted on it. I guess we ended the race. We had a tire going down too. So we had multiple issues the rest of the race that kind of hindered the rest of it. But
in Kip, so we talk about obviously now going to be working with a lot of young upcoming drivers. What John Hunter pulled off the other night was the epitome of just be there. Just take what the race is giving you at the time, because his car was not good. Like all the Gibbs cars were pretty bad, especially in traffic. And he just kind of hung around the top 10, top 5, stayed in position, and then he finds himself leading the race when we all, the top lane gets jacked up, and he goes on to win because guys are fighting behind him. But that's just the epitome of what we always tell especially younger drivers, like, sometimes you got a 5th place car, you just got to finish 5th with it. We've seen guys try to take a 5th place car, run 3rd, and run it in the fence. And sometimes you just got to take what it gives you, and sometimes the brakes will fall your way.
Yeah. So that happens at any level of the sport, right? So, and that John Hunter's now not a young guy, right? He's a veteran, and now he's smart enough to realize that that's going to happen, not to try to get any more than your car's going to give you.
Not to run a Cole Custer, slam off the racetrack up into the guardrail, and not even really ever cross start finish at Mid-Ohio that time. Remember that? That John Hunter?
Yeah.
That one,
I love that John Hunter.
Is that when Jonathan Davis was fighting on the front stretch?
Yeah.
That was Canada, wasn't it? I think
was
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. Kip, spot on, spot off. NASCAR elects to not throw the caution after Harvick's spin with rain on the way.
Yeah, so spot on with that because, when you're sitting up in race control and you're wanting to do everything you can to keep the race going, when you do have a car that is off the pace, no matter what the problem is. Did he spin?
He spun.
Okay, so
Down out of the way, though. I mean,
Yeah,
it
but
wasn't on the track.
no contact, no debris, right? And no fluid. The one thing that I think we learned about the next-gen cars that, if there's any fluid coming out of them, it's generally caught by the underpan. So he's able to get down and out of the way. Kudos to him and Timmy and Rodney for getting him down out of the way because by doing that, it allowed the race to keep going. It's never ideal. And, if you're at a point of the race where you're not worried about what's coming in on you, you may throw the yellow, but at the same time, too, you're still wanting to give a chance to let that race kind of keep playing out. The fact that Kevin got way down to the bottom of the racetrack and when I was watching him as he was staying down the bottom, and the cars going by him, he was down as far as he could go. Everything worked out right to let the race keep going.
I think so.
It was the right call to make, and given they had the opportunity to make the right call, and I think they did.
Yeah, race kept going up front. I got a question for Brett. Looking at the way some of these bigger races end, we have a wreck at the Daytona 500 for 15th, 20th place, something like that, and it was really and it kind of robbed everyone of the finish at the 500, in my opinion. Do you if you were to do something like that in another series, you would get maybe a grid penalty, something like that? Do you think that's something they could look at? If you ruin the race for the lead for 20th place for a move that you just drive in there and turn a guy, should there be some repercussions for that?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, TJ. I was surprised that Kevin wrecked. The way that Denny came down on him.
I think Denny reacted.
I understand why he wrecked.
Yeah.
But I don't think, by no means did Denny Hamlin wreck Kevin Harvick.
No.
Not to evade your question, but just to kind of touch on what Kip said. I was surprised Kevin wrecked because these cars have been hard to wreck at a lot of places. And that looked like the old school days where somebody kind of bounced off the wall, hit somebody in the right front and shoot them down. Then he did bounce off the wall, but that's exactly how the contact looked. The only person to me that can answer this question as to whether or not the yellow should be thrown is Kevin Harvick, because he knows if he was in danger or not riding around on the apron at 40 miles an hour when the field came by him at 200 miles an hour. That's what I was afraid of, would be that somebody would wreck into him when he's just an innocent bystander trying to limp back to pit road. And I can't answer that question. That's a Kevin Harvick question to me.
Rodney, his crew chief, did tweet, did the caution come out yet, with a gift. So
obviously he thought it should have, but Rodney wants the caution to come out because he's selfish in that situation.
I do see the safety standpoint too. If he was driving, if he was riding not in any danger, it has to be a tough call on NASCAR.
The problem that we always come back to, it's consistency, and this is another problem that we always kind of address on here is you have different people calling races. On Saturday night, I think it was the 31 does a half spin and the caution comes out immediately.
Yeah.
And then you have Kevin slide, spin off a 4, slide in front of half the field probably, slide down the front straightaway. You don't know when he's sliding which way he's going. He could easily back up the racetrack. So I think that this is a caution. Obviously, the yellow wasn't thrown because we are trying to get to halfway. We're trying to get this race in. You throw the caution, you risk that the weather comes in, and we have an issue like we had in Chicago with the Xfinity race where now we're just short of halfway, but we got to all come back tomorrow.
Here's my question, Freddie, because you're making a great point. Do you want the people behind Kevin Harvick to stay wide open or lift?
Yeah, I mean,
that's the question.
That's the question, and you almost have to lift. Obviously, you don't have to lift till you see. We see it playing out, and luckily he continued on through the grass, did not slide back up onto the racetrack. But we've seen many times where a guy gets turned around off of turn 4 and goes one way, and then ends up coming back across the racetrack. And now you've put these guys in position where the green flag's still out. You can't lift, especially at this place. With the package we're running, you can't lift. So now they're only going to lift if the caution comes out, and if he comes back across the racetrack, we've got a bad situation on our hands. So luckily he didn't. He spun to the apron and continued on and rode around, really slow, nursing, I'm assuming, flat tires back. But I think 90% of the time this is a caution flag, and if it's a caution 90% of the time, it should be a caution 100% of the time. And I get it. You're trying to get to halfway, but we've talked about this before on here. A caution flag is a caution flag. It shouldn't the situation going on around the race at that point should not have any effect on whether or not that's a yellow flag or not.
TJ, to your point, yes. If somebody wrecks somebody in the back for no reason.
Yeah, I just think it's sometimes
I've seen lap cars getting away for no reason. I mean, we've seen a lot of dumb stuff play out, and I do think that it shouldn't go unofficiated when it's changing the outcome of the race, because we talk about changing the outcome of the race all the time on here, and that's changing the outcome of the race.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I want to see the finish line. I don't want to have to go back and let's review this. That gets really. And that's another thing too. Like, even when the yellow comes out, we're not really sure you don't know where you're going to be at. So it's hard to even lift, even when the yellow comes out, because I'm telling you, we've all been robbed we feel like we've been robbed of spots. You do, and I mean.
I almost got a bunch from last night.
I know.
We spun out and they lined us up back when we were running. At the end, I was like, just go up there. They're not going to let us stay up there, but go up there anyway, just to prove a point. Like,
Kip, on the subject of consistency, and you listen to the show, so you hear it's been talked about a lot. And being on the NASCAR side, what do you think? Like, what can you tell these guys that hopefully will help them realize why you have different directors at different races? What do you think could be different?
All right, so there's a couple things there. Different directors, right? So what you're seeing is they're wanting to add depth to their department, right? And so, with David Hoots retiring a few years ago, and that put all the race directing on to Jason Hamilton and Tim Berman. Then they started bringing folks in. Chase Brashears was a part of that group, and I think now is going to maybe return to help out with that department as well. Tiffany Meyrick's been in that role and learning to be a race director. I think Jesse Little's done a phenomenal job in getting in that seat. He's just to get out of the driver's seat and into a chair to call races, to have the demeanor that you have to have when you're up in race control is huge. From a consistency standpoint, it's I guess I would equate that to if you're at a baseball game and you got a guy calling behind the home plate, and he's got a strike zone that's here and here. We all know what the strike zone is supposed to be, right? It's the width of the plate from the chest to the knees. But they all see things just a touch differently. You're going to have that with this too. And to ask one guy to call every race is impossible. You're going to have someone get sick, and that's why they wanted to add the depth to that department. And I think they're really getting to a point though where they are becoming more consistent. The challenges is that there are no two situations that happen on a racetrack that are the same. So you do have to be ready to react differently to it's like everyone says, you go to Charlotte, Texas, and Atlanta, and they're all the same track. They're not. So any situation that happens on a racetrack that may look the same, the situations that are all around it may be different. And so it's not easy. I remember hearing stories about a driver or a car owner or a crew chief being invited to come on up and sit down with us one day and see what we've got going on. It is it's really a work of art when you sit up there and you hear it.
And
done.
you did it. I remember it was not that long ago you were doing it, right?
Yeah. So we were in a position to where we had some folks that were we were still trying to build that department. And because I had some race directing experience in my past, I called a few races for Xfinity. And basically that was nothing more than to knock the cobwebs off and be ready to go. So if they needed someone to go up there at a moment's notice, I was ready. And so, since that time, they've, like I said, been able to add Jesse, been able to add a few other folks. And that they're certainly not wanting to be inconsistent because, they want to do the exact same thing for every time that they can. But I'm going to tell you, when you're sitting up there and situations happen on the racetrack, and it's all at the blink of an eye, you don't have a chance to really sit there and observe it and let's think about this. You have to react. And so and at the same time, you have to not react in the same accord, not reacting. And I remember I'd walked away when Kevin had his deal with Denny, but I remember seeing the replay to not react on that. They're sitting there with a button or the finger on the button, and they're ready to, but at the same time, they get crucified if they throw a yellow and it doesn't materialize. So they're in a really tough spot. A lot of times a no-win situation. But the goal is to be consistent as much as they can be given the circumstances they're having to work with.
William Byron and others use strategy at the end of stage 2 to gain track position, and Byron wins after going a lap down earlier in the race. TJ, spot on, spot off.
I mean, spot on. That was his only call for a win, and they got it. So I don't know how you can spot off the call. He won the race with it. So don't think it. Obviously, if it goes back green and they don't pit, they're not going to win the race. They're going to go a lap and a half down, pitting under green if they have to. Big trouble. That was it. That was win or lose big, and they won. So spot on.
Yeah, I mean, he was decent in the beginning. He was pretty good in the beginning.
He passed like 5 cars in that last run. Everybody pitted in front of him, or they wrecked in front of him.
But then they had a pit road penalty. I don't know if it was driver or team, whatever. I can't remember. Safety violation. So they make a mistake. They get put in the back, and what happens? You see it you see it almost every week. Somebody has to go to the back for a safety or some kind of pit road penalty, and they end up getting caught up in a wreck. Because a lot of the wrecks were happening mid to backpack, and he gets caught up and gets damaged, and now he's a lap down and has to battle back. And this was their avenue to take a shot, and they took it. And when you have 3 wins already on the season, you can afford to take these shots. And now here he is. He's now matched, I think, his career win total this year. He had 4 coming into this year. He's got 4 this year now. He's now back in the point lead after having what do you get, a 75-point penalty or something like that, or 60. So. Listen, he's on top of the world right now, and I don't know how he's not one of your favorites to go to Phoenix.
He's got 27, I think, playoff points. Obviously, that's the most of anybody. To your point, tied Ryan Blaney at 8 Cup wins, has more Cup wins than A.J. Foyt. Like, this guy has set the world on fire this year. And I mean, I think when you look at what Rick Hendrick did with him, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman – I mean, I remember you were replacing Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., and Casey Kane. Well, how the hell do you do that? Well, now it looks like he knows what he was doing. I mean, earlier in the year before Alex got hurt, he was leading the points. So, I mean, Hendrick Motorsports, once again, the cream rises to the top, and here they are. I mean, you can't spot off what those guys are doing. But here's the big winner in William Byron winning that race. It's the guy that's sitting 16th in points. Because if A.J. Allmendinger, Michael McDowell, those guys, Daniel Suarez that are running 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, if any of those guys pull this win off, that guy's 16th in points.
It's out.
It's toast.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the credit has to go to Rudy, right? And I think when you go back and you see the pairing, and we'll use Mr. Hendrick again as don't ever question what he does. I mean, he's been pretty dang successful in most everything he's touched throughout his racing career. So pairing Rudy and William back up a year or so ago, how long has it been now?
This is their 2nd year.
All right, so pairing them back up together, man, it was they never missed a beat, and I think you're seeing that now. And I've gotten to know Rudy, a little bit over the past couple of years, and he is he's just. And I think a lot of the crew chiefs are this way. When you see them, if you meet them walking around, they're just regular old guys, but dang, they're so smart, and they're constantly playing 4 or 5 plays ahead, and knowing, okay, what are our options now that we have this penalty, and so a lot of credit has to go to Rudy on that one.
I agree.
Spot on, spot off. Ryan Preece has 0 top 10s compared to Harrison Burton's 1. TJ.
Yeah, this is I'm kind of spot off. I think I did expect the Ryan to have some more successful runs this year. He's had speed at times, but definitely not the consistency that he's probably looking for. I do think Ryan can still is a phenomenal race car driver, and I do think he'll get it figured out. He hasn't tore up a lot of stuff, but he just hasn't had a lot of speed. So, looking at Harrison's, where'd Harrison get his top 10 at?
Was it Chicago? I don't know. Wasn't Chicago. It was not Chicago.
I don't even know where it was at, but I think Harrison's struggling right now, and I think he's in one of them positions where yesterday I think we saw him just trying too hard early on in the race, and I think the situation that he's in pushes him to try too hard, and it's easy to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So
He was at Darlington.
I gotcha.
Nice,
Okay.
easy place.
Yeah, I mean that shows you. That shows you that. I mean, that's a tough race to finish. So obviously, you know, he knows how to put together a race. Just needs to figure out how to keep doing it.
It's as far as Preece goes, you know, he's shown speed. He was on the pole of Martinsville. He was probably the best car at the Clash before they had issues with whatever was fuel pickup or something like that. But it kind of goes to show you where Stewart Haas is at. You look, you know, you say Ryan's got no top 10s, which is surprising to me. When I seen this on the show sheet, I was like, there's no way he doesn't have a top 10 yet, because seemingly everybody figures out a good way to get it. I mean, J.J. Yaley, to their credit, last night finished 6th or 7th. You know, like everybody
That's
just
his
usually,
second top 10 of the year.
usually just figures out a way to get a top 10 or just kind of, you know, backs into one, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, you look at Stewart Haas as a whole, they have 12 top 10s across the board, and 7 of them are Kevin. You know, that's whatever, you know, that's 19 starts apiece, 76 races, I think, whatever it is. You know, that they don't have the speed they've had. They're borderline awful. You know, Kevin's the only one that has been consistently able to run up near the top 10 at least. The 14 to 41, they just don't have the speed to compete. And like I said last night, sometimes you get it, you know, Ryan's running in the top 10 last night and gets run over from behind and turned down into us, and that's the end of the race, unfortunately. So, you know, to Ryan's side of things, like, I know he's a phenomenal race car driver. I've known Ryan since he's 12, 13 years old, running modifieds. And I don't doubt the fact that he can bounce back from this. But at the same time, you know, numbers don't lie. And we talk about that with Harrison at the same time. Harrison's got 56 Cup starts and 3 top 10s. And unfortunately, that's not going to cut it where he's at.
I am spot on for anybody that's in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series that's looking for a job, because it appears there's going to be some guys out of jobs if this trend continues. I mean, you can't, to Freddie's point, you can't go 20-plus races and not score a top 10. I mean, I talked about last year when they made this change. Ryan Preece and Cole Custer on paper look like the same guy, and here they are 19 races statistically, and they still look like the same guy in the Cup Series. Ryan's a good dude. Ryan's a very good race car driver. I think he belongs at the Cup level. I think Harrison Burton is also a good dude. Comes from a great family, won 4 Xfinity races in one season. I know he's better than where he's running. You know, is he a guy that's going to go out there and compete to win a Cup championship? No, not at this point in his career. But he can't go out there and continue to wreck at lap 10 or in stage 1 or halfway through. He's got to finish these races, or he's going to be in trouble, big trouble. You know, and I don't mean trouble like he was going to lose a 21 ride. Like, he'll be in trouble in terms of nobody's going to watch.
Yeah, when you lose a 21, what are you going to do? Because and to your point, I don't know that there may be one viable option to put in a 21 car. If I think Harrison's back next year, we've seen flashes of decent. You know, he ran, like we said, top 10 at Darlington. The middle part of the year, I felt like we started to see improvement, and now we've kind of trended back in a different direction. So to your point, great kid, great family. Hopefully he can find that again. And I think he remains in the seat of the 21 for next year, mainly because who are you going to put in there? You know, if you assume, you know, we've heard obviously the 10 is going to be open. I would assume that between the 10 and the 34, those rides are full with Zane Smith and Michael McDowell. Could be right, could be wrong. I think that those two guys take those 2 rides, whichever way it works out.
You think Michael McDowell stays where he's at?
I think he either gets into 10 or he gets into 34. I think. You know, I don't know for a fact. I think he would like to go somewhere else, but I don't know where you go if you're not getting in one of those cars. What else is open? Maybe the 21, but that's what I'm saying. I'm assuming that the 10 and the 34 take up Zane and Michael McDowell, who I think are the best 2 available guys now that Josh Berry's off the market. The next guy I think you're looking at is maybe an Austin Hill. What's his deal with RCR? What's his deal with Chevrolet? Can he get out? Can he go over and run a Ford? And you got to also look at Harrison's financial side of things. He's got big sponsorship with him. So, you know, can Austin Hill match that? Like, there's a lot of things that come into it where if you're going to replace Harrison, yes, he's not performing like you had hoped. But who are you going to put in there that you think is just going to – we just talked about you replace Cole Custer with Ryan Preece, and you're basically getting the same results. Who are you going to put in a 21 that's going to just completely go and blow Harrison out of the water?
Yeah, so this proves 2 things, right? That these guys that drive these Cup cars are some of the, if not the best racers in the world, right? From top to bottom. They're all good. And we've seen the success that both Ryan and Harrison have had at every level that they've raced at. So they can get the job done, right? So the next thing that this proves is the fact that chemistry has a lot to do with it too. And I'm not saying it's just driver, crew chief. It's everything. It's all encompassing right now. So it's a shame that they all can't find good finishes, find good races, find wins. But at the end, it's chemistry has a whole lot to do with it. And right now, it's just not clicking for these guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you look at this Harrison thing, and you look, man. The best thing that could happen to him yesterday is to have to sit in a hauler or sit on top of a pit box and watch your teammates, your other 3 Penske teammates, go out there running 1, 2, 3.
Well, he's pressing. I mean,
but you got to go home and you got to wake up and go, I got to calm the down.
Yeah.
I got to wake up tomorrow and I got to hit reset and I've got to finish New Hampshire. And I've got to try to stay on the lead lap, and I've got to try to run top 15. And here's one thing I want to help you people on social media with. Jeff Burton is not paying for Harrison Burton to drive at Penske Racing. Stop tweeting that stupid shit. Harrison Burton was recruited by Roger Penske to come and drive this car. He was flown to Detroit, Michigan to meet with Roger Penske without Jeff Burton. He was hired to drive this car. He has sponsors backing him. Stop tweeting that his daddy is paying for this ride, because he's not. I just want to help y'all not look so dumb. That's all.
Don't hold anything back.
Yeah,
I'm not.
really.
Like
It drives me nuts, though.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there that probably say you drive them nuts.
That's fine.
I
They
could
don't
be
have to
wrong.
follow me. They don't have to ever see my tweet again, and I can
can't
help them
because
with
you
that.
block 'em.
That's exactly right.
Oh, all right. Let's move on to the DBC A main, and I want to give a shout out to our friends Tyler Courtney and Chris Wyndham.
That's
Both-
Freddie's boys.
Yes.
Which one were you pulling for there, fanboy?
I was pulling for Chris. He's never won, so I was hoping he.
He's so close, but
He's getting
both
there.
NOS Energy drivers, they went 1-2 in the Lou Blaney Memorial. Racing was all over the place this past weekend, and there is tons to look forward to this week between Millbridge and the Kings Royal, I believe, is this weekend.
So going back, I'm watching this race, and it didn't go off. They had some rain in the area for that Lou Blaney race, which is at Sharon Speedway. The Blaney family owns it. And I'm watching it, and it's going off at about 1:30 in the morning. We had got back from Xfinity probably,
Yeah,
I don't know,
I went to
11 o'clock.
bed.
And so I was like staying up, and the two of them are running up front. That's primarily the reason I stayed up. They're both in the dash, so I know they're both starting up front. And I'm like, this day has been horrendous. We had failed tech twice. So we lost our pit stall selection, which is a big deal at plate races. We had our issue in qualifying. We had issues with our pit road practice. Then I'm running second. We're running second, thinking I'm going to get a shot to win the race. And the Xfinity, we're running the gas. I'm like, this day cannot get any worse. And then these two are battling. I'm like, God, please just don't run each other over here. Like, I'm like, this day cannot get much worse. And they end up running 1-2. And I had hoped that was going to be a trend for the next day to turn around, but it didn't. But yeah, it was a fun race to watch, and I'm looking forward. I assume they're both going to Eldora this week for the Million and the Kings Royal, which this is probably I think it's a $2 million purse, and it pays $1 million and I think like $2,023 to win, which is probably the most I think it's ever been for a sprint car race, at least.
That's one thing I want to see Kip take the bull by the horns
Oh, my
on is I see these massive purses in the dirt world.
You want $1 million
And
cars
I
race?
want $1 million cars race, Kip. And I'm not going to sponsor it.
I want $1 million midget and
I'll put
micro race.
$5 on
He
it.
said you got the couch race at $200.
There you go.
We got a $100 deal right here. We're almost there.
Oh, well, don't forget, catch all the racing on Dirt Vision and catch us on Dirt Vision this Wednesday. Let's move on to reaction theater.
Who do we need to talk to about these Sunday night races? It's not nearly as fun watching knowing that I can't get absolutely hammered and sleep it off the next day. I mean, I could, but I can't really call into work. Also, TJ, you don't suck.
Oh, was that TJ?
That was TJ.
The one thing I seen off the frontstretch.com there had an interesting stat. This is the first back-to-back shortened races since 2003.
Wow.
And that lends itself to two Sunday night races. You know, we got shut down for darkness basically last week, and this week was unfortunately weather. And you're not going to keep us there all night because it's already I don't know. It's
I
10
wanted
o'clock
you
or
guys to
so.
stay there all
I'm
night.
sure you did.
Did you care if they had to stay all night, Kip?
He cared. He cared more than you did. I'm sure about it.
I cared, right? So
But do you think that having the night races, obviously broadcast has something to do with it, which you talk about a lot. But
I mean, it was hot last year in Atlanta.
I was just
Kip.
going to say is all of the races that are now night races, like Nashville and Atlanta, I mean, even Chicago is really hot. Do you think that has to do with it, or have you been involved in that process where they're saying, like, we're making it safer by having night races?
Well, it's July, so it's
Yep.
going to be hot, right? I mean, and we've had hot races before. I think that, broadcast certainly has a say in it, but all the stakeholders do. So, I mean, one thing I'll give Ben Kennedy credit for, when we've watched Ben rise through the company, both right after he got out of the driver's seat and all the way up to where he is today. Ben is working his tail off to make sure that the schedule is more diverse than it's ever been, and it's going to be more I don't know how you say this, but more appealing to everyone, right? So you're always going to have folks that aren't going to be happy with certain things that you do or certain decisions that you make, but having that race, the national race being late, the late afternoon Chicago, they'll probably think about that again because your window there with no lights, it's a real challenge. But the later times or start time at Atlanta, a lot you probably has to do with the heat of the day. But a big thing too is making sure we're putting eyeballs on it, whether they're sitting there at the track or if they are watching it on TV. And I know there has to be a recovery day. I get that, depending on how much adult beverage that you do consume. But a lot of the folks that were there at the track, they're planning for that. If you're watching the race at home, plan for that too. If you've got to take a half day the next day, then I guess that's what you just need to do.
I mean, Brett drank a case of wine last night.
It wasn't a case. It was 4 bottles. I don't know how many bottles are in a case. It might have been a case.
4.
So here's my thing. I grew up a NASCAR diehard fan. I pulled for Dale Earnhardt over Michael Jordan, right? I absolutely love racing.
Hey, easy.
Do I missed the 12:30 starts? Yes. But let me ask you something. You're a sports nut. When is the biggest NFL game played on Sunday? Is it the 1 o'clock games? Is it the 4 o'clock games? No,
It's Monday
it's
night,
not.
right?
It's the freaking on Sunday. Well, that's true too. But it's the Sunday night game. NBC has that big Sunday night game. ESPN on Monday, they don't play it at freaking 5:30.
And when you get later in the year, and they're actually doing it for Thursday this year, when you get later in the year, they will flex games to Monday night or Sunday night, I should say. They'll if there is a playoff matchup or a game that has playoff implications during the day, they'll move it to that Sunday night game the week before. So
I mean, the Sunday, and I'm getting at the Sunday ratings in Chicago were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Obviously, duh. But I think a lot of that helps that it started later and went later, and here we are again, starting later and go later. I really hope the ratings come out today, tomorrow, and I hope they're over 3 million. And if they are, I think unfortunately NASCAR employees are going to just have, the industry's going to have to embrace the fact that the ratings are going to be better at night, and we have to race when the ratings are going to be at their highest point. Otherwise, the sponsorships are devalued, right?
I would say this too. I would almost venture to bet that the same person that's complaining about a late start time on Sunday is the same person that's going to say we need to be racing midweek at night.
yeah,
We tried that.
Well,
Guess what?
That's-
I know it did.
Yeah.
But
The
but
ratings
that's-
suck.
But I'm really passionate about what fans think about how the sport is managed and whatnot. But it does amaze me sometimes that some of the things that are complained about, and I think that the late start time on Sunday, I asked you guys when we walked in here what time that y'all got back, and so I get it. It makes for a late trip home, or it makes for a really tough Monday. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are the motorsports industry is being seen by as many folks as we can.
I think 2 things you have to watch out for with this is, and we've seen it. I saw a chart. I wish I could pull it up now. I think it was a Nashville race that they were breaking down, and it was obviously a great audience. And we've heard this in the past. Me and Brett have talked to people that said every hour you move back closer to prime time is worth about 5% of audience, pick increase.
Thanks to Jeff Burton, we know that.
Yeah. So the problem is you have to also watch about how late you run, I think, because there was a chart that I watched, I think it was after Nashville, where we had a really good audience, but then the late run, it starts to run into 10, 11 o'clock at night, and the audience starts to crash out because obviously they're going to bed. And I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, if you're going to run at night, run Saturday night. Well, we've seen that in the past, and the audience isn't there. And I remember growing up as a kid, I was at the racetrack my whole life, and I remember hating the Saturday night races because I was at Riverhead Raceway watching my dad race, and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to miss that race, and that's what you want to promote local short track racing. That's where a lot of our audience is going to be on Saturday night, is at their local short track watching their races. Right. So that hurts our audience. So I think that it's been a home run. Nashville's numbers were up. Chicago was through the roof. You're going to see this one probably come in over 3 million, where last year I think it was like 2.5, 2.6, something like that.
And from an in-person attendance, it looked like the crowd was really good last night too.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you run a Sunday night race, do you not try to force a 500-miler on a Sunday night?
That's why I tweeted what I tweeted yesterday, man. I love that Atlanta 300-mile race, and I did it. Sorry, you can unblock me. After the Xfinity Series race, I literally was sitting there, and I was like, this is the best length we could have for this style of racetrack and a plate drafting style racetrack. And I'm going to say one more thing, and I'll hush. I think the best thing for NASCAR to happen as it pertains to the Chicago street race is for that mayor to say don't come back. Because when I look at L.A., I was there for the first year in L.A., the buzz was enormous, was it not? Yeah. The second year, I think it wasn't, and I wasn't there, but going off industry stuff, I heard it wasn't quite what it was year one. If we have the opportunity to put this street race on tour, man, I love that idea. I love us taking it to new cities, because there are a lot of amazing cities in America that we aren't close to. Yeah. And this gives us an opportunity to do that.
I think to your point and what you just asked, TJ, that lends itself to, that can cover both. The race doesn't need to be 400 miles. We can start a race at 7, and if we run 3 hours, you're done by 10, and you don't see that fall off at the back half of 10 to 11 o'clock where people are just going to bed. They got to go to work on Monday.
Sunday night race.
A Sunday night race where you shorten the distance and make it a 2.5, 3 hour race, I think is a phenomenal idea.
I love to watch the truck series. I love to watch it. It drives me bonkers when they start at 9 o'clock East Coast time.
Yeah. I do think
I can't do it.
To touch on Brett's point, I think Chicago deserves a nice, hopefully if they go there, hopefully the weather's nice, because I would have loved to seen the vibe at the track that day, let all the events go off that should have happened.
Everything, right? All the concerts,
everything.
And,
yeah.
I think we're going back. I think it's just going to cost NASCAR.
I think you would have. I think you would have enjoyed it.
More money.
I think you should go, Brett, because I think you would have enjoyed
it. Sign me up.
Yeah, great.
I'm telling you, it was actually.
They'll love to see you.
It was a really cool
I used to love downtown Chicago. How many calls have we listened to? One?
Yep. That's what I'm saying.
Just
Let's
one.
keep going.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll
short.
Did you, though?
Can you please explain to me how in the living hell Justin Haley comes on the radio, tells Smith, or his crew chief, make sure Smith knows how important a winded colleague is here, and then tries to pass Hemric when he has no shot, and then says on TV, I was running out of gas? Are you freaking kidding me?
I thought that was a brilliant PR move by Justin.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs to be an attorney or an elected official as soon as his NASCAR career is over, because I bought it. Kip, did you buy it? He was running out of gas?
I was driving home.
Justin, we got a guy that would like to talk to you.
Yeah, how do you guys come home with the Department of Defense business cards? I'm worried about you.
Well, yeah, the letter said.
For you.
Yeah, they said would like to speak to Brett on the note.
I'm changing my number.
They already know it.
While you're talking about that, special shout out to Robert Coons, who is
listener.
Sounds important, resident agent in charge of the U.S. Defense Department of Defense. So he sent us these cool
Kip's
coins.
title should be executive director in charge. In charge just sounds important.
It does.
Casey, what are you in charge of?
I'm still trying
Chloe.
to figure that out.
She's in charge of telling you to hush, but that ain't working.
Yeah, it's
That
not
never
working.
works.
We got a cool coin, too, from it. Do you still have some of yours?
Oh, yeah, my Air Force coins.
I do, too. When we did a lot of stuff with Dell Jr. sponsors back in the day, we got a lot of coins. And, man, I've got a good collection of them at home. So they're always cool to keep and look at.
General Handy was a 4-star general in the United States Air Force. Was the highest ranking coin I think I own.
Nice.
He's pretty far up there. I'm like, man, do
Yeah.
you have the president's phone number? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh.
The coolest one that I ever got, and I would get it on an annual basis, was when Leonard Wood would walk up to me in the garage and hand me one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'll be making the trip to Stewart because I know that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, and just a plug for them, if you've not been to their museum in Stewart, put it on your list to go. Great place to go.
Absolutely great
Yeah.
place to go. There's only one place to eat in town, Hardee's.
No, there's a Mexican restaurant.
Is there?
we went up there
Nice.
and took a tour of the shop and got to watch Leonard working on engines. And I'm gonna tell you that guy still gets it done to this day. He had a he had a carburetor, an 8th scale carburetor that he had on top of a regular size engine, and he was making that thing sing. And then we talked about going to lunch, and we talked about where to go. One joint in town, and it was a Mexican restaurant, and let me tell you, it was hopping and authentic. It was very good.
Good. I love Stewart, Virginia.
All right, let's move on.
NASCAR, you suck. How are you going to sit around for 15 laps with a thumb up your ass, waiting for the rain to show up? Guess what? I don't care that it's just going to be like Daytona and last year. They're all going to wreck going into the turn one because there's rain. Let them run. Guess what? You can call it out and have them slow down. They have things called brakes.
Does he want to pay for all the wrecked cars?
I don't know if you saw how good them brakes worked in the rain a lot last week, but
Or
Yeah.
at Daytona last year.
yeah, did they all have brakes in?
Oh.
We cannot have another Daytona incident like that. We cannot do that.
No.
I do think there was a handful of laps before the rain was even doing anything that they could have opened pit road, but which I think they should have. I do think they could have opened pit road right there, but because those guys that were doing that were swinging for the fence anyway. It's not like they just got up there and earned their, positions. But I mean,
To Kip's point, they were not coming in.
No,
You were going to
yeah.
wait till 1 to go to come
Yeah.
in.
Hate to say it because I do enjoy Daytona being the final race of the regular season, but I think Atlanta needs to be the new one, and Atlanta at night. They hadn't even made the end of the second stage, and it's more intense than any other race so far this season.
Again, weather played a factor with that. I think if you told the guys at Daytona, we don't know when it's going to end, you'd see Daytona ramp up too. But, it all played a little factor.
Weather coming to Daytona, when especially you can see it off. Like you've been part of races where we could see the rain coming.
Yep.
And hey, I mean, how many times you told your crew chief, "Hey, it's about a half mile away. I can see it," and it's go time. So definitely played a big part of it.
All right, well, to leave an audio message 24/7, you can call our new number, 704-802-9572, or head to anchor.fm/stormbumperclear. We will continue to play the best ones each week. You can also submit your questions to Ask DBC, which is our next topic. Use hashtag AskDBC when submitting, and Andrew will do his best to pick the best ones. This first one is from Mike, and it's directly for Kip.
Who's Chris?
Sorry.
Can we
This
pause?
first one is I hate you. This first one is for Mike, and it's for Kip. What was the most funny or interesting experience you had driving the pace car?
That's a lot of laps around a racetrack. God, to come up with one, right? So to go back to this season, we when I knew that my status was going to be changing, I had the opportunity to go back and maybe some of the guys that were starting up front, ask them, hey, then I wouldn't tell them why, but hey, there's a camera on the back of this car. If you would, come up and show that camera a little bit of love. And so, and I've done that throughout the course of the year. We had Lynn St. James as our honorary driver at Phoenix, and because of her and the relationship she had with Kyle Larson, Kyle came up and nudged us on the 1-to-go lap, and she just lost it. She had so much fun. So, but this year at Nashville, I walked back and I said, hey, Kyle, there's a camera on the back of the car, and I get photos from that. If you would just come, show a little love. While I'm standing there, I see Brexton and Samantha standing there with Kyle, and I asked Samantha, hey, you think Brexton would like to get in the car? She said, that'd be awesome, man. So cool. And so I said, didn't have any honorary drivers, didn't have any riders that race. So she went and asked Brexton. He said, well, are you going to ride? She said, no, you go ahead. And he's like, nope, not going to do it unless you get in the car too. So she jumps in the back. Brexton gets in the front of the car, and we roll off the pace laps, and Brexton said, yep, see those skid marks going up to the wall? I know who crashed right there. Yep, see that sponsor over on the billboard in turn 3? I know who they sponsored. Yep, see, he was so businesslike, right, sitting up in the front seat. When you go through turns 3 and 4, you really ought to stay right down to the bottom of the racetrack. So he is 100% racer already. Samantha, meanwhile, is in the back seat like a 5-year-old, turned around, taking pictures, screaming and hollering. She had a blast riding in that car. and videoing the whole time. And of course, Kyle came up and gave us a nudge, and I didn't tell her that was going to happen, but she got a kick out of that. And so that was really kind of cool. But there have been so many over the course of the year, so many great honorary pace car drivers. There have been a time or two also when things may have gotten a little dicey because someone was upset with a decision that we made, and that's okay too. But
care to elaborate?
Anybody stand out as an honorary driver? That
honorary drivers. Yeah, so I said this on the last show when we had Chip and Joanna Gaines, at Texas, and this was several years ago. They are, the people who watch them on, they were on HGTV. I guess they have their own network now, right? So when you watch them and you see them on TV, that is exactly how they act in real life. And so the funniest part about that is when, Chip was going through his pace car driver training. We have to give him all the training. He was so excited, and we'd already been out giving, rides to folks. We were running 100, 110 around the racetrack, and we get him in the car and put him behind the wheel. I said, "Yes, sir, your training starts right now." He says, "How fast do we get to go?" And I said, 45. And he was like, are you kidding me? 45? So we're out there, and we're putting around at 45. Meanwhile, Tara Labonte and a couple others are still giving rides, and they are whipping past us, and it was freaking him out. But he was a lot of fun. And like I said, just the fact that that's how he is in real life. But so many athletes and celebrities that we've had the opportunity to either introduce to our sport, or they come and do this because they already love our sport. Was so much fun. But and that's everyone has asked me what part of the job you're going to miss. That's definitely one of them.
I got to ask you this while you're talking about it. You've been around a lot of great leaders in motorsports in your career. Which one have you learned the most from?
Wow. Yeah, so I've grown up in the sport, right? So I had the chance to be around, when Bill France Jr. was, and now I wasn't working, obviously, but when Bill Jr. was running the sport. And, so I've seen the different leaders up to this point, right up to, Steve Phelps being the president of NASCAR right now. I was extremely excited when we learned that Jim France was going to take a more active role in the sport. When Jim showed up to the garage that first weekend, and he immediately remembered me from back when my dad was a part of the sport.
Wow.
And I didn't realize this. Jim and my dad actually were over in Vietnam around the same time too. So that was pretty interesting. And so to be able to talk and listen and learn from that man with all the things that he's learned or has been a part of, throughout his lifetime in our sport, is really amazing. He is he's so smart, and he's kind of unassuming too. I mean, he could walk through the garage tomorrow and no one would realize who he was. Blue jeans, ball cap, he's just cruising around through there and just blends right in with everybody. But knows everything about what's going on, has his finger on the pulse. So, Jim is obviously, he ranks right up there amongst the best of them. Of course, Mike Helton's been in the sport for a long time, and, Mike came up to me at Chicago, and he said, "So I heard you're leaving us again," because, when I left, the first time when my daughter was born, and now leaving, last week. And so he sat down beside me and he asked me what I'd be doing, and he leaned over and he kind of like, he put his arm on me and said, "You're the right guy for the job." And there is no better endorsement than to get that from him. So I will say that I've had the opportunity to be around a lot of great leaders, both at that level and, series directors too. Brad Moran's doing a great job with the Cup Series now. I had the chance to work with Jay Fabian when he was part of the Cup Series. Man, well,
we've met.
I know that you know Jay in a very intimate setting at Indianapolis. I remember that. So,
which I thought was a joke when I texted you. I was like, "This guy is being serious."
I thought it was a birthday party.
So Wayne Alton, the Alton family, I've been around them my whole life too, and and then the future leaders that are coming up through the sport too. Seth Kramlich, who's in charge of the Truck Series right now. The future the sport's had a lot of great leaders up to this point, and the future is extremely bright for what's coming.
Agreed. This next one is from Master of Light. What is your
It's a
favorite
big title.
Kevin Harvick moment from Kevin's amazing career that he's had from the Cup Series?
For me, I remember watching one of the moments that sticks out for me. We were actually riding back. We used to race speed weeks all the time, and I don't remember what year this was. It had to be mid 2000s, maybe. We were riding in the back of our hauler, leaving New Smyrna for TS haulers, riding back to Long Island, and we watched the race where he edged out Mark Martin. I think it was at the 500.
Yeah, that was Mark Martin. I mean, by inches.
Yeah, by inches. We watched that live, so that's one that always sticks out for me in my memory of Kevin, obviously.
I mean, look, it's easy to say the Atlanta win for a million reasons, but I don't think that win was about Kevin Harvick. I think that win was about our sport, Richard Childress Racing, Dale Earnhardt. But Kevin drove the car, and he drove the wheels off of it, and if that start-finish line had been 3 feet further, closer to turn one, he would have lost. Jeff Gordon would have beat him. So definitely a big win. I mean, we were all in our 3 ball caps on the roof that day, and it was emotional. It was cool to see him win that one.
Yeah, so I will go back and I will say this says, what is your favorite Kevin Harvick moment? And the Atlanta race is mine. I was at Racing Radios at the time, and Richard Childress Racing was a customer of ours. And I remember that day at Daytona. I remember the silence on the radio, and it was eerie. And I remember the jubilation on the radio on that day, when he won that race. And it was healing for the sport, and even people beyond the sport. So that, for me, that sticks out pretty big.
TJ.
Man, I think there's a lot of Kevin Harvick moments that stand out, and getting to know Kevin a little bit. I've been on a lot of flights with him here in the last couple of years, and getting to know him, he's a really funny guy, but he is the closer. That guy, you'll see him in 25th, and the next stage or next, 25 laps later, he's 20th, then he's 15th. He knows how to go forward the entire race. He is probably one of the most consistent drivers. These races that he's ended up finishing good this year and got up near the front, like Darlington, he was right up there, top 3 at the end of the race. And it's because he never made any crazy moves. He rolled the bottom. He did what he knew his car would do, and he was very consistent with it. He's probably one of the top 3 most consistent guys on the racetrack to me. And he knows he's super smart when he's running these races. He knows he knows what's going to happen before it even really happens a lot of times. He's just smart. He knows how to be there at the end. He's got so many moments though, between that Daytona 500, the Atlanta race, him and Rodney, man, they built a really solid team there, and we knew every week you had to beat the 4 there for a while. So he's accomplished a lot in his career, and I'm glad I've been here to witness it.
I don't think mentally there's anybody else in the game better than he is right now. He's tough. He's confident. He's selfish when he has to be. I think he has all the mental. He has more mental assets than most that are out there. And I've been around a lot of race car drivers. I know where they have deficiencies. I don't think mentally Kevin's got one. And not in a race car.
To your point, I think he is doing more with less than anybody in the sport right now. You look at Stewart Haas as a whole, and Kevin is still finding a way to be in contention to win races and get top 5s, top 10s. They are outperforming their equipment at the moment, I think.
And he's been an incredible mentor, I feel like, for a lot of the up-and-coming drivers, too, from, I think, every interview I've seen from drivers about him.
I think the coolest thing about him is seeing how much he changed once he had kids.
Yep.
That's like when you saw the childish crap go away and the maturity not only come to the forefront, it came to the forefront quickly. Right. And I think that's awesome to see. Growth.
Yep. Let's move on to What an Idiot. Kip, would you like to start off?
Thanks.
Got any idiots?
I don't have one. That's
Starting to sound like me, Kip.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's not.
That's all right.
That's not a bad thing. So I had a great weekend. Obviously going out to Wake County and being a part of the Cars Tour for the first weekend officially for me, and seeing how our race day goes. I mean, from the unloading of our equipment to setting up for the race, seeing those teams work together, even in the face of adversity. They all really work together. There's no way I could have a What an Idiot for this week. So I will
just defer to Brett.
You didn't watch it.
You didn't have a couple.
You didn't watch it. No, Freddie usually has a list. Sometimes TJ has a list. If you didn't watch the truck race or the Xfinity race, that's why.
Yeah, I was busy. Oh yeah, okay, never mind. So I've not. I won't. Again, I don't remember his name, but it's the
I'll call him an idiot for you. It's Sean Hingarani.
yeah. So I could not believe
Who?
that.
Sean who?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when he and Dean were, I guess, coming to the checker, right? It
Yeah,
was. I saw that replay about 1,000 times on Twitter. I could not believe someone. If you're a part of a team and you're a part of that team, that's kind of like the epitome of teams when it comes to ARCA racing, right? I cannot believe that Bill and Billy are going to stand by and not do anything as a result of what happened.
So to break it down, the 15 was probably the second best car. Ankrum was lights out better than everybody. He had spun out, drove back from 9 seconds back to win the race, lights out faster than everybody. The 15 I think was the second best car. He could actually keep up with Ankrum a little bit, maybe not quite as good, but he would make mistakes and get himself buried in traffic a little bit. And our friend Jesse Love was leading, but Jesse was having issues with his car running down.
What's his name, Brett?
Jesse Love.
The one long straightaway there off the keyhole or whatever it is, like his car wouldn't run. It was a fuel pickup issue, what it was, like he dropped a cylinder. So he was having to play a lot of defense, and it got worse as it went, it seemed. So Sean was behind him, and if he just was patient enough, he probably would have rode by him and took off, and it might have been harder for Ankrum to catch him. But he made a mistake. He drove off the track, so that let Dean and a couple other guys in front of him. They eventually all get around Jesse, and now Dean and Sean are racing for the lead, and Sean puts the bumper to him in that second-to-last right-hander, and Dean just kind of runs him wide off the last corner coming down the front stretch, and Sean stays in it, gets out in the grass, spins out, and then waits on him. And first of all, after he spins out, he needs a caution, obviously, because he's got to catch up. So what does he do for a caution? He just lines up poor Bob Schacht, who's 73 years old, just trying out there making laps, and he goes and just wrecks that guy trying to get a yellow. Wow. Yellow doesn't come out because Bob kind of spins off the racetrack and kind of gets going again. So that's one move that's just ridiculous. Well, then to top that off, and from what I understand, people that were there on the radio, they're asking him they knew what he was getting ready to do, and they are pleading with him not to do it over the radio, openly over the radio, and he still manages to wait on Dean Thompson, who's running second, who's got 3 or 4 second place finishes, and just runs him off the racetrack.
Yeah, I've never, Brett calls people idiot enough for all the rest of us, so I generally don't go down that path, but I will say this. If you're racing in the ARCA series, you're probably doing it to try to make a name for yourself, to move up through the ranks. That is obviously not the way to go. I mean, you're not a great teammate. You've lost your composure there at the end of the race. To hope that someone's going to look at you and want to be able to put you in their race car, or if you're trying to attract a sponsor, they're going to really think long and hard before getting into business with you.
Yeah, and that's one of my stops on my path to where I'm at now was about 2 years of Venerini Motorsports, and that was, watching them guys put all. I mean, and it's we talk about how Cup guys are not teammates. The 10 car, the 23 and the 45 are teammates, but the 23 team is one team, the 45 team is one team. When you're at that level, there's no such thing as like different teams. There's probably 10, 15 guys in the shop, and they get all the cars ready. They all load up in a van and drive to most of the races. I did it for 2 years. We'd get they got like a little bus that we would all drive to the track. That, like you said, is the epitome of family team atmosphere. And for that to happen there was ridiculous.
Yeah, but when you talk about you guys not being y'all are teammates, but you're two different teams. That generally only really comes into play when you're battling for a win.
Oh, yeah.
When you're a lap down or you're at the tail of the field and you go and you take out your teammate, that's.
TJ, got anybody? Or Brett?
I mean, it's kind of hard. I kind of give it to both of them guys, though, because I don't know if Sean got into the back of him a little bit, but that's kind of road course racing in a slow corner is kind of short track racing a little bit. To me, you're going to get bumped sometimes. I don't know if that necessarily. I mean, obviously, it was really obvious that Dean ran him off on purpose, and it eventually wrecked him. I mean, if that's the case, he gets side by side with you. You get on the next corner, you bump him a little bit. I don't know if that's like. To me, there was a jab, and then Dean threw a big punch and wrecked him, but.
He didn't wreck him. He ran him. He could have lifted.
Well, he ran him off, and if you're going to spin out, they had monsooned there a little while before that. So if you run somebody off in the grass, it's going to be bad. So I give it more to Sean, but there's a runner up right there. Well, and also, who's the guy? that spins through the sand trap.
Oh.
And instead of driving
Oh.
straight about across the sand trap that's maybe, 15, 20 yards wide, he decides to try to go down the whole thing and then get stuck.
Well,
So-
my favorite was our buddy from 2 weeks ago, Lawless. He
was that him that did that?
No, well, Lawless maybe different. Lawless spun through the sand trap, and there was a road right behind him. And instead of backing onto the road, he drove into the sand trap and got stuck.
Wow.
He slid through the sand trap onto the grass, and there was
That was him.
yeah.
Instead of driving straight across it, though, he turned down and tried to go it down a long ways. I don't know
brilliant.
if yeah.
A lot of mental fortitude lacking in y'all statements. I'll give it to the 24 Xfinity car for wrecking himself in Atlanta. I don't know where the awareness was lacking. I tweeted it. I didn't know who was spotting for the car. Nick, what's his name, was spotting. He got mad. I tweeted about him. Listen, let me tell y'all something, man. I've had a lot of fortunate opportunities in this sport. The first one spotting for Elliott Sadler was in the Cup Series, and it literally was a part-time gig in terms of the money that was coming in. It was for fun. I can't tell you how many times I've told people no. I don't want a spot for you. And it's not because I don't like them. It's because I'm not going to put myself in a position to look stupid. I do that well enough myself. I don't
do
need help
that
doing
well.
that.
Absolutely,
I mean, we
you
look
do.
at Freddie with Garrett Smithley. He stopped spotting for him for a reason. I've had other friends that listen, when Tyler Mond got the Kyle Larson gig, I went up to him and I said, congratulations. And Tyler at the time, I mean, he had come from spotting for back markers, and we all got to start somewhere. I went up to him and I said, man, you got an amazing opportunity on your hands. Every spotter up here would love to spot for Kyle Larson. Stop spotting for all them crappy drivers that you spot for, because they're going to make you look bad. And I think when you look at these spotters these days, they make a lot of money to spot these Cup cars. We didn't. I mean, my first year, I'll be honest with you, in 2001, I made $12,000 spotting for a Cup car. It was $300 a weekend. And now they're making a lot of money. And they don't have to go out and do these gigs for $200-300, $400 a weekend, and it make them look bad. So my spotter, my idiot for the week is whatever happened with that 24 Xfinity car, because there's only one other car around you. How can you wreck yourself in that position?
I have to give somebody what a genius. I slip these in every once in a while. I saw after the Xfinity race, Parker Kligerman, obviously I don't think he ever touched him. You guys.
No, he lost the nose. He got tight, and he packed air on his left rear, and it wrecked him.
So he went down to apologize to Austin Hill for that incident, and he made sure he was at least 10 feet away because he watched that video of Austin Hill with Myatt Snyder last year. So he was apologizing, but he was in front of the car yelling, "Hey, I'm real sorry about that." So he wasn't getting within arm's length, and I don't blame him because Austin wasn't in a good mood, obviously. But that is my what a genius for the week. We'll have to go to
Maybe
Parker
he should have
Kligerman.
went up and be like, I want to be your friend. Maybe he would have liked it. I have one more to add.
Uh-oh.
Go, TJ.
Well, it's you.
It's your birthday.
How do you show up with glitter all over you?
I don't know. I got glitter on me.
Oh,
sure
dude.
do.
It's all over you. It's on your
So
face,
I
dude.
wore this
It's in
shirt to
your
the
beard.
shoe show last night.
Where
I
you
tell
been
you.
this morning?
I mean-
After 4 bottles of wine.
Listen, I
Sure.
had a 14 people at Myrtle Beach, and the majority of them were teenage girls. So that's exactly how I've ended up
That
with glitter all
really
over me.
sounded great.
That explains a lot.
I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. Ocean Lakes. Have you been to Ocean Lakes,
Oh,
Kip?
yeah.
Man, I grew up going in there as a teenager and high school, college student, and I haven't been in a long time. I have never seen that many people in one spot in my life. It was absolutely insane. My girls had a blast, and we'll be going back, but not July 4th. It was too hot. It was hot.
It's July. It's
I
supposed to be
know.
hot.
I know it's supposed to be hot.
All right, moving on to DVC picks. Congratulations, TJ. You bet on yourself, and it pays off.
Look. I almost had him.
What happened to Logano? I felt like the guy's up there all the race. I look at the end of the race, he's like 17th.
I don't know.
Did he have
I
an
was,
issue
I was
somewhere?
wondering about that too. I don't know what
I
happened.
felt like he was in the top 3 the whole race.
Justin Haley with back-to-back top 10s.
Yep.
We've seen this though, Freddie. A couple of these guys, they run fast, and then when they lose their track position,
The 10,
You know-
10 was a perfect example. He led that whole first run, and then he got back there, and he was
Yeah.
struggling back there by
and
us.
that's honestly been a characteristic of that 22 this year. They have struggled the first couple stages, and then Paul swings for the fence with a late pit strategy, and obviously Joey, you put him in the top 5, he's hard to beat.
Yeah,
so
he is.
so you do that, and you end up with a really solid finish.
So who's going first?
Not me.
I am for New Hampshire, and I'll take Seabell. Freddie.
Martin Truex Jr.
Brett.
We talked about him on the show a lot, and he needs a good run. This is a sister track to Phoenix, and he finished 5th there last year. Kevin Harvick.
And TJ.
Well, I mean, geez, everyone's.
I was going to pick Briscoe, and then I looked where he's at in points because he finished 7th there last year, and he's barely above. He's like 31st in points. So, I mean, he's not trending good.
Listen, let me tell you something. He was, like a month ago, he was in the playoffs. Like when we broke into the playoffs, we passed him. So he was 14th or 15th in points probably a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. Wow. And yeah, that's where he's at now.
Can't finish 30th every week.
Man, I don't. You guys are all taking the heavy hitters, so I'm just gonna.
Oh, you're about to talk about somebody.
I mean, I want to have a shot at winning, but I know I'm not gonna. I don't want to. What can I do? I'm gonna take Suarez.
I mean, that's not a bad pick.
No, I think he's got a shot, but I mean, I have other better drivers still left to pick, so I think Suarez if he puts together a solid race, he has a chance to be good. So.
All right. Well, heading to New Hampshire, the weather looks super stellar.
Let me guess, it's going to rain?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
So what are we thinking, like, will wet
Zero
weather...
lights. No lights.
Hold on a minute, Casey. Kip, who do you think's going to win the race?
Yeah, so that was tough, right? So thinking back to, Seabell's always good there, I think, right? And it kind of falls into some of his wheelhouse. This would be a great breakout race for Preece. I don't know that he was going to win, but a great opportunity for him to have a good finish. Man, it's tough.
I was at a test there, and the 20 was really fast.
Was he really?
It was
so I'm way out of the loop on all this. Is this new package or is this?
No, this is
short track.
This is the same short track package. They're testing the new package
right after
the race.
Yeah, but I think Truex is going to be really good there because he's been really fast everywhere he's been here lately. So that's
yeah. He's had more speed than what some of his finishes show.
Yeah.
So what are you saying, Casey's going to rain?
I'm hoping it's not because I'll be there, but I was
You'll
wondering...
leave early anyways. It don't matter.
Look who's talking. I was wondering what we're thinking about the wet weather tires and if it will potentially be used.
Will they bring them here? I don't even know.
Yeah.
They bring them here? I mean, it's going to be the same. We're not... I think it's a great thing because it saves us probably 30 minutes a lot of times, and I think that they could maybe even push that a little bit more. But they're not going to put us in a position where we're really racing on a super wet racetrack. I don't think.
No. So I'll tell you this. The idea for that is not to race in the rain. It's made to be able to get to racing as the track's being dry, and it's a good opportunity. That way, you're not waiting around for that extra hour and a half, especially on a humid day.
We've seen the wet weather tires. I think it'd be great if the track's a little bit damp and we go green there. I mean,
Wilkesboro.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I'm fine with it. Man, it was. You remember what it looked like at Wilkesboro? It was fun, man. There was guys that were not too sure looking around.
And they were fast.
The cars looked up on top of the track more, and the drivers were wheeling it. And it didn't look like a sealed off RC car.
They're the best drivers in the world. Prove it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say it's not a total washout based on the one that I used, but it is New Hampshire and you are close to the coast, so
Yep. You never know.
Best race of the year this year is going to be in New Hampshire, modified race.
Yeah.
You spotting?
Friday.
Yeah, I'm spotting for our buddy Doug.
Doug
Friday night, right?
Tommy Baldwin's
What
car.
was he texting us about the other night? He was mad about something?
He's mad. Yeah, he got spun out leading the race or something like that. Yeah, but go down to, what's the name of the place? Lobster down the street? Macris. I'll be up in X Slot or whatever it's called at the Black Flag Podcast Party on Saturday night.
The spot to go there is Mills Falls.
I don't even know where
Go
that
both.
is.
Go to both.
So badass. That's a great area.
Thank you so much, Kip, for joining us.
Thank
always
you.
fun to be around.
You are
Thank
always
you.
welcome.
Good luck.
Yeah, congratulations.
Let's get
Did
one
not
more.
See what the cars
The
told
boss
us.
wouldn't be happy if we don't get one more Cars Tour promo in there. Where are we going next?
So Hickory here at the end of the month for
Throwback.
our throwback weekend. Yep, for the pro lates and late model stock cars. All day a hell of a
Which,
show.
if you aren't aware, that kind of like the Darlington throwback weekend, they take these late models and throw them back. I think that the theme is this year maybe I don't know, are we allowed to say that they've announced, right? The Hooters Cup deal? I know there's some guys talking about
they
throwing
have.
back
I've seen it.
to Hooters Cup paint schemes. So I know there's a bunch of that. And it's going to be a phenomenal race.
So that's July 29th?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Looking forward
Coming?
to it.
You going?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm home.
It's a cool weekend.
Yeah. I'm not going to Richmond.
Before we leave, shout out to two people. Our friends Chocolate Myers, Jess Ballard, both kind of won their battles this
Ringing
week.
the bell,
Ringing
that's
the
right.
bell, and awesome to see that. Well, I've known Jess for a long time, good friends with her and Travis. Awesome to see her kind of take the next step and get ready to start life over again. It seems like for her, she's been through the ringer and Chocolate. I don't know Chocolate well, but obviously seeing him come down the hallway and ring the bell in that video was awesome. So shout out to them too. Hope everything's on the up and up from here.
That's right.
Thank y'all for listening, Kip. Best of luck in your in charge role. We're
Thanks.
pulling for you. You got 4 fans in here, and stay in touch, man.
Yeah,
All
Kip,
right.
can I have your sign in
I'm gonna
stuff?
need passes.
Yeah, can I have your sign into that
Can I get a
system?
log
parking
in.
pass? for
Megan
your
needs
picture?
Meg needs a hot pass for Loudon if you could.
We'll
work.
send you those requests.
I'll give you Jesse's phone number.
We out, holla.
Good one.
See ya. Good news, guys. The ultimate experience is back.
At Bristol night race.
Bristol night race was phenomenal last year. The ultimate experience was phenomenal at the Bristol night race, and I think this was the one that sold out immediately. So I know there's tickets available. I would not wait long to get them.
It's a big suite. It's a lot of cold beer, good food, an amazing view with seamless glass. You can see the entire racetrack from the suite. I am not typically a sit-out inside kind of person at a sporting event, but at Bristol, I could spot the race from in there. It's that good.
I don't know if this is going to hurt or help sales. Are you planning on going to this one? Or
I am planning on going, and I will be in there for at least half the race, and if there's enough Fireball, I might stick around for the whole thing.
Please tell me you're going to live tweet during the race while you're in the suite.
I will if you want me to.
I do want you to.
I may bring all 60 people outside to meet you guys on the roof.
That's fine.
Maybe me and Freddie should just come to them.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely coming to them, but I mean, they might not like it. They may have another favorite spotter outside of us 3. Probably not.
You're a
Of
great
course
tour
not.
guide, and they'll be in great hands.
Yeah. I mean, we won't get lost or anything or arrested.
So, yeah, go to dirtymomedia.com/ultimate experience now to get your tickets. Like I said, they sold out immediately last year, so I wouldn't wait long.
Tell them Spotter Brett sent you.
One of the best races of the year as well. I don't think you want to miss it.
And to Brett's point, it is one of the best suite experiences. Bristol has the seamless glass is phenomenal. The view of Bristol is unbeatable.
I'm excited. I can't wait to go back. Can't wait to see all you guys. We've had a lot of repeat customers, probably 10 to 15 people. I've seen it all of them, so I'm sure we'll see you guys again. It's cool making friends. And I'm going to warn you before you get there, Mike Davis will not shut up. He talks the entire race. So if you want to actually watch the race, make sure you don't sit anywhere
So
near
it's just
Mike.
like the download.
It's just like the download.
Oh,
He's a
gotcha.
new Dillner. He doesn't
Got
hush.